dollars, it will be a failure.
Absolutely.
Well, you have failed, Premier Smith, as far as I'm concerned. There's lots of reasons for us to contribute. So if you can do this today, albertatelethon.com. Are we ready? I was just running Jagger with our guest in just a moment. Throw it to her in just a moment. We've got Berta Proud Dad coming up in just a moment after our guest. And Dennis Kalma will be in. Dennis is awesome. Berta Proud, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to throw it to Caroline. So here's what happened. A couple of weekends ago, I do my independence calendar on the weekends, and somebody sent me this grainy video of this woman playing a ukulele, singing a song called Alberta Rose. And I was just thrilled hearing her sing this song, an original song. So I said, please let me know who she is. And everybody says, that's Caroline, John. You got to get Caroline on. So I contacted her. She's just wonderful. She's here today. I think we're sending it to the other studio. I hope that happens. But our friend, Caroline Richards with Alberta Rose, thank you so much. Mitch, thank you.
Thank you,
my
John.
friend Wade, thank you so much.
You
Berta
bet,
Proud
brother.
coming up in
Thanks.
just a moment.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mitch.
very much.
Thanks,
Over to
John.
Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Donate.
Great.
So you're getting a bit of a lag here. There'll be like a floor monitor, a floor director for you, or I can be that. We'll tell you when, because you're gonna hit. You're probably 30, 40 seconds behind right now. There's some stuff if you want to just on the TPAs and everything. It's all there.
Where were you? Were you here?
I was sitting here. You can sit over here. Sure. The camera's right over here.
Freedom on your mind. We're happy if you come and live as long as you align. If you're looking for a handout, you won't get it here. Hard work, a job, low taxes, love and no fear. 'Cause we're taking back our chickens, cows and ducks. We're never eating crickets. Thank you very much. They've canceled our gas and oil 'cause that's just what they chose. And that's the very reason that Alberta rose. And that's the very reason that Alberta rose.
Fine. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you for being here.
It was easy to do. It was, yeah, a little more stressful than I thought, but that's okay. Oh, thank you. Well, something extra, right? Oh, I hope so.
That's okay. We're smiling and not swearing.
That's good. That's the main thing.
Thank you so much. You
Well,
look
I really
awesome, by
appreciate
the
it.
way.
What?
You look awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Wow, what a fantastic crowd. There are thousands of our fellow Albertans here today. Thank you for being at the largest ever rally for Alberta's sovereignty in Alberta's history. We are at an inflection point, ladies and gentlemen, a time in history where we have a choice. And that choice is, do we continue to be subservient to Ottawa and the enslavement by our federal government? Or do we chart a new path forward to freedom and prosperity through independence? We have the leverage. We have the power. We have the ability to empower our provincial government to be able to, for the first time in history, negotiate a new sovereign Alberta from a position of strength. And that position of strength comes from a successful referendum on Alberta sovereignty.
Albertans, it's time we face the truth. Ottawa's system cannot be fixed from within. Every path to fairness is blocked by design. Every single year, we lose between $20 and $28 billion in equalization payments. That's about $6,000 per Albertan. Or for an average family of 4, that's $24,000 your family gives away to Ottawa for no services in return. That's money that you earned and money you'll never see again. But after all these things, they have not yet broken our spirit. Alberta is not getting a fair deal in Canada right now. And here's the truth. If we actually want real change, the kind that means opening up the Constitution, that's nearly impossible for Albertans to do on our own. But if we vote yes in a sovereignty referendum, that changes everything. Suddenly, Alberta is not begging to be heard. We'd be negotiating from a position of strength for the first time in our history. And when that happens, when we vote yes to sovereignty, Ottawa will listen.
I'm told constantly on my channel, Fringe, there is no way you can vote your way out of this mess. I beg to differ. Alberta, you've been handed a golden ticket. You've been given a golden opportunity. You've said for years, your vote has no weight in the federal elections. Our Senate is unrepresented. Our votes just put bums in chairs.
Well, that was some amazing footage from the legislature. And I would like to give a shout out and a thank you to Caroline Richards for that tune that she gave us. That was absolutely amazing. It's Berta Proud Dad, ladies and gentlemen. How is everybody doing? And what an honor it is to have Dennis Kalma with me for this next hour on the telethon. And you guys might know Dennis from his book, co-author or principal author, The Value of Freedom. And you know, it's important to remember when we're doing, you know, something like this today, how we all got here. Right? How we all decided to get to this position. You know, it wasn't very long ago that I was championing Pierre Poilievre and Battle River Crowfoot and going up against people like Grant Abraham. And, you know, I really thought that we could fix this country. Come January, I decided to make a little shift when I started seeing people cross the floor. And I'd seen that before. It's not like I hadn't seen it before, Dennis, but you know, that was really the final straw for me. And I always like to ask people what was their line, and what was your line?
So I'd been an independence or someone very unhappy how Canada was running for a number of years. And my solution at some point was to say, okay, it's time for me to leave. I'll leave in retirement and away I go. But then Pierre came on the scene and I thought, hey, this guy's going to get in. He's going to win. Should be no problem. He can start undoing the mess that we were in. And then we had that wonderful election there in April of last year, and he lost, and we literally had no influence. And I saw if there was any chance for Pierre at all, that it was gone and probably gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
If Pierre couldn't get in with all of his popularity, how on earth could anyone else ever get in? So I got mad, and I was just on X for the first time, and I saw Jeff Rath go by, on various posts. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I like what he's saying. This is good. And Jeff's quite a forceful speaker, so that was good.
Yep.
So I pinged him. I chatted with him and said, hey, you need some help. I'm willing to help any way I can. He says, well, have you ever written a business plan? I said, sure. Dozens of them when I was an executive at a bunch of different countries around the world. He's okay. Can you give it a shot? So I said, okay. And we started writing The Value of Freedom.
Wow.
And that went on for about 6 weeks of heavy duty writing and analysis and so forth. Primarily Jeff and I. He did a lot of the policy work. I did mainly the analytics and the numbers. And at that point I was committed and just keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it's important to remind people that, they like to label us in this independence movement that we're just a bunch of rednecks, right? That's what they like to say. And that's fine. Whatever. They can say what they want. But I'm a Red Seal heavy duty mechanic.
Yeah.
That's what I am. And what's your background?
I'm a theoretical physicist by training. So I got a degree in physics. And I spent my life primarily dealing with organizations under stress. Long story, I won't bore you with how I got from physics to that. But effectively, I was the guy that dropped in when a large project or an organization was failing. And they brought me in to try and fix stuff. One of the things you have to do when you try and fix stuff is figure out what's wrong and write a plan to get out of it, a business plan or some sort of major project plan. So that's the background that got me here. And that's the one that I'm sticking with. Yeah,
well, that's the whole point, right? So we all come from different walks of life.
Yep.
So like myself, a mechanic, you physicist, that's crazy. That's awesome.
And we get along fine.
I've never talked to a physicist in my life. This is the first time. But I know other mechanics. I know doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers. I know, this independence movement really is full of a bunch of people that just want what's best for their province, and they're seeing it. So I recently just became a grandfather.
Congratulations.
Right? And thank you. And that gave me another reason to fight, right? It was like a whole new thing. Like I was fighting for my kids before, and now there's another reason. And I like to talk about not just the floor crossing, what brought me over to independence. I like to remind people of this. When Stephen Harper back in 2015 left office, he left Canada with about a $590 billion debt. That's what we had. And that was from 1867 to 2015. Yep. We accrued that debt. Now we're sitting at 1.3 trillion in 11 years. So we more than doubled that debt.
Yep.
If we keep going under the current spending, and people, you can look this up. I'm not pulling this out of my ass. You can look this up. If we go under this current spending, 1.3 trillion is going to balloon up to 3 trillion under Mark Carney.
Yep.
And what does that do for Alberta?
Well, that's the thing I think people are not talking enough about. There's people who rightly say, oh, there's risks about becoming independent and things that have to be done to get us as an independent country. And that's all true. There are risks and there are things that have to be completed. More about that later, by the way. But they neglect to take into account what happens if we stay. And the answers are not pretty at all. First of all, we're seeing no end of laws and acts aimed primarily at curtailing Alberta industry, but also other industries. We see reduction of our freedoms. We see no end of prosecution of pick on Tamara Leach, going after people for doing things that at worst should be a minor charge. And you see all this stuff going on. And then to your point exactly, and then we're going to spend ourselves into penury. At some point, and if you read history, for example, the Weimar Republic from the 30s, they effectively spent their country into oblivion and opened the door for an extremist that we all know as Adolf Hitler. Now, no one wants that to happen, but the point is the country is bankrupting itself one buck at a time, one borrowed billion at a time, one more donation to some cause overseas at a time. And if we don't stop it, Canada will be in the crapper, and we'll be in the crapper with it.
And you know what? That's a very good point. We're already there. I just got to interrupt 1 second, talk to our producer here. We're getting people saying that he's a little bit quiet. So if we could fix his audio, that would be awesome. There we go. Let us know, guys, if that is working better. That would be awesome. As well as, since I took this little break, let's make sure we're sharing this out. Share this on this. This is out on every single influencer on the independent side, most of our platforms. If you're sitting at home right now and you're watching, share it to your groups. Share this out, because this is truly about the third-party advertisers today. We're raising money for the third-party advertisers, and I want to get into that with you. Those are the boots on the ground people. These are the people doing the work. And if you're looking at mainstream news, CTV, CBC, global, they have
a lot of money, unlimited funds.
Yes.
They're funded by the government, over $1 billion per year. 1.4 billion, I believe, or 1.6 and 1.4 goes to CBC. These third-party advertisers, they need our help as Alberta Independent supporters, as people sitting at home right now, people sitting right here. I'm gonna say this quick. Danny Bucks just came out. Danny dollars. So if you guys, oh, sorry, wrong one. 1 second. If you guys applied for your Danny dollars and got your $100, ladies and gentlemen, your $100. Alberta Proud Dad got his $100. I didn't apply for Danny dollars, so I'm just donating $100. But I know Danny dollars just came out. This is going to go to Jason Levine's TPA. That's what I'm going to give this one to. I've donated to some other TPAs, but this one's going to go to Jason's today. He's on next with Marty, so stick around for that. So what is the importance of these TPAs?
They are absolutely critical. And because of all the silly restrictions put on the amount of spending, we're going to need many of them. That's why we don't have one big one. And TPAs are each developing their own personality. So there's ones that want to pursue cities. There's ones that want to pursue, for example, door knocking. There's other ways of approaching it, but we need many of them pulling it together. But all of them cost money. We've got lots of volunteer labor, lots of people willing to help and put in their time, like myself. But at some point, there's things that cost money. You want to run advertisements. You want to buy flags. You want to, signs for people's front lawns. That all costs money. So we need people to contribute some cash. Now, we're not big, fat, and happy like CBC.
Yeah.
We don't need $1.9 billion.
Yeah.
But we do need some. So I encourage people all the time to contribute what you can. The Danny Bucks are a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
But as Mitch was saying earlier in the program, is 100,000 people contributing $20 is a lot of money.
Yes, it is. And that's what we're trying to do with this telethon today is get out to as many people as possible. And, I'm donating 100, maybe you can only do 10 or 20. It is what it is. But the whole goal is to fill these TPAs up so they can go out and do that boots on the ground work. I have a little bit of stuff here that we could talk about. Right now, if you go to albertatelethon.com, it's posted on your screen, guys. You're gonna be able to pick from the multiple TPAs which one that you want to support. Be sure to fill out all of the information, name, address, etc. to save the TPA a lot of aggravation. That one's very, very important. And failure to fill in all information while using PayPal and e-transfers may result in your donation going to Elections Alberta at the end of the campaign. That's not something
Don't want to do that.
we want. We're going to get into Elections Alberta in a second. You can donate up to $5,000 through the entire referendum campaign. Each family member can also donate up to $5,000. Donations of $50 and under do not require personal information. $250 donations and below per TPA, and your name does not appear on the Elections Alberta website. You must be an Alberta resident to donate. I am clear about that. I get this to my DMs all the time. Guy from Ontario who's really supporting what we're doing, or British Columbia or wherever else. You cannot donate, but you can share this stream. You can share our content. You can share other people's content, and you can be part of the movement that way. And none of the TPAs will share your personal information. For more information, go to Elections Alberta website, electionsalberta.ca. So albertatelethon.com, ladies and gentlemen, let's get those donations in. That's why we're here. That's what we're trying to do. Let's talk about Elections Alberta for a second and Forever Canadian people. That's something that I really want to talk about because Thomas Lukaszuk has been rolling around the province in a campaign bus. He's got 2 campaign headquarters, and he's saying he's not campaigning.
Well, it's complete crap. I mean, what drives me crazy is Canada used to be run under the premise of the hypothetical reasonable man. That would be the idea that the judges would look at something and say, is it reasonable in the eyes of that reasonable man or woman? You look at what Thomas is doing, any reasonable person would look at it and say, that's campaigning. He's doing a partisan message. He's advocating a particular side of the referendum. All that kind of stuff is true. And yet somehow Elections Alberta seems to think, well, that's fine. You're just talking. It's okay. But you, on the other hand, Keith Wilson, who is doing similar kind of messaging, albeit for the other side of the question, all of a sudden they're looked at and scrutinized and tied down by all these rules. It's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. And watching the double standard take place shows exactly what kind of state of affairs we are in and why Alberta independence is so important, because under an independent Alberta, we'll have checks and balances for all sides. Because that's the thing too that people don't realize is just if we go independent, we're going to have opposition, right? It's not
Totally.
like everybody's going to leave the province, which people say everybody's going to leave. I think a lot of people will come to Alberta if that's the case.
I agree.
But we'll still have opposition, and we're just going to have a better system that I believe will be more transparent and work for the people, by the people.
Yeah. So let me give you two things. So first of all, remember, if we win this referendum, or rather when we win this referendum, Naheed Nenshi will be an Albertan. He'll be a politician. He can run for office, and people may well vote for him under the new system. We're going to have people of all stripes, just like we do today. And you know what? They're all welcome, because Alberta will be a free place. Now, how can I say that? I just finished a tour with Bruce Party and Matt Rowley, 3 cities. We talked about constitutional models, talked about approaches to how you can set up a country to be more durable, more stable, more free than what we have today. Matt Rowley advocates a reformed Westminster system. Bruce Party advocates a very libertarian approach. I tend to be the middle ground guy that says, okay, the Constitution should be more of a Republican Constitution. But we presented that to quite a few people in those 3 sessions, and all of them, all 3 models have the same elements regarding personal freedom, political freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom to bear arms if necessary. All those kind of things are built into all 3 choices, and all of them will work, and all of them can fail. But the idea is that we can craft a country that's more durable, more reliably governed, has more controls on government, gets rid of the excesses, things like uses of the Emergencies Act we talked about a few minutes ago. All those kind of things can be structured in our new country to protect the rights of citizens and make us a prosperous country.
Yeah. I want to talk about that a little bit too. So I say this a lot on my channel, is we are a British Commonwealth. You and I sitting here right now are loyal British subjects. Whether we don't want to be loyal British subjects or not, that's what we are labeled as. And the current system in Canada under the British parliamentary system is designed for a king to look over his loyal subjects. So what you've seen with the Emergencies Act, for instance, when you see what happened in Ottawa, I was there as well, and I seen what happened, is we have privileges granted to us by the crown that can be taken away from us at any time. It's not a charter of rights and freedoms, it's a charter of privileges, and the crown can take those away. Now, if you see the Emergencies Act, like you just mentioned, you know, it was ruled to be unconstitutional. So basically illegal what the government did to us. Now the government is appealing it, and now it's all the way up to the Supreme Court. The only reason it's in the Supreme Court, in my opinion, is they want to use it again.
Yes.
And is it a good possibility that they might use it against Albertans?
Let's put it this way. I wouldn't exclude the possibility. I think that let's presume we win. Let's presume it gets serious and we start saying, okay, we're winning the yes-no referendum that follows, and it's starting to be a momentum is building. I can see them, because I don't trust them as far as I could throw any of them, saying, okay, we have to stop this. It's a threat to national integrity. It's a threat to the nation as a whole. They can take all those kinds of things and say, okay, this warrants being an emergency. Look at the parallel. A bunch of truckers parked their trucks in one city with bouncy castles, no less, and they invoked the Emergencies Act for that without even speaking to them. When you got 500,000 or 600,000 people who are all saying the same thing, that's going to look like insurrection to them.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about this a few minutes ago. I think it's a vastly different situation. The truckers were away from home, in their trucks, in a foreign city, a strange city, and it was a fairly small group. What's going to happen when they find out 600, 700,000, a million Albertans who want to leave are now trying to be governed under this Emergencies Act? It will not be a pretty sight, and I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. We can do this peacefully. We can do this professionally. We can do this in a good way that all parties walk out in a good situation. But I don't trust our government to not invoke the EAG.
No, I don't either. And you said something there, a key word, peacefully. And that's what we have been. We've been peaceful. We've been doing our rallies. We've been going to our areas. They did the canvassing, but it hasn't been peaceful on the other side. And we've caught video evidence of that. A guy getting a cigarette thrown at his face. We saw a guy get pushed into the street there in Edmonton. We've seen, Marty up north, who's going to be here on the show after this, hosting Jason Levine. He canvassed, I don't know how many days in a row out in the blistering cold, and he had some nutsos come up to him. And, it hasn't been peaceful on one side. And this is truly what we're up against. Again, for the reason for the telethon, ladies and gentlemen, is to get the money to the people doing the boots on the ground. That's the whole purpose of this. So if you haven't donated yet, please go to albertatelethon.com. Pick your TPA, any TPA. Like I said, I'm using my Danny dollars, and I'm going to be giving $100 to a TPA. And I'm pretty sure you guys can too, because if this means something to you, and never mind, look at your kids, look at your grandchildren, and do you want them to have a better future than what they're going to currently have under the system? And that's what I want to kind of move into, is this white paper that has been talked about, because a lot of questions I get on my channel is, what currency you're going to use, what military you're going to have, you're landlocked. There's so many people pushing back against Alberta independence, acting like a country has never been created on this planet before, or changed countries. Little plots of land have left countries and become countries, and they act as if, this is something that is not doable. And I know there's a white paper being worked on. I know you're part of that. Is there any update on that? Is anybody going to, because I know there's a lot of people looking for that.
Yeah. So I'm co-lead for development of the white paper with Keith Wilson. So I'm spending most of my days dealing with the team that's actually pulling it together. Now, people say, oh, it's very complicated, it's very difficult. There's actually about 19 areas that be dealt with. Things like taxation, things like policing, things like pensions. None of them are new to world. Mm-hmm. There's not one thing that has to be recreated for Alberta that is not already done in Canada today. We're just trying to figure out what the right solution is for Alberta. The other thing with transition planning, people immediately start to land about, this is going to be, what's the long-term plan for currency? What's the long-term outlook for military long-term? We're not planning for that. Mm-hmm. That is the job of the future legislature. Mm-hmm. And that is their job to say what the long-term is. We're covering the period of time from when we win the referendum until a constitutional conference is held, a new government is elected, and they begin putting in the policies and laws required to operate the nation long-term. So we're scaffolding. We're bridging the gap from winning that referendum to a new government being fully in force. Now, one of the things we are developing is the model for the Constitutional Conference. That is, how do you handle transition authority? And it's obviously Danielle and the UCP, presuming they're in power, mm-hmm. will be a big part of that, because they are the government in power at the time of we win the referendum. It covers that. It also covers what's the method by which we choose the constitutional model we want to use in this country. Is it a republic? Is it a Westminster system, like Matt says, or is it Bruce Party's, very strong libertarian outlook? That's not for us to decide. It's not for Keith to decide, me to decide. We're going to put the tools in place to say, let the people decide what the Constitution should be, and then let the people choose the leaders under that new Constitution, and let those leaders and those elected representatives make the decisions for the long term. So it's not rocket science, and there isn't a question on that list you just mentioned a minute ago that doesn't have a clear and simple answer.
Yeah. Well, isn't that how it's supposed to be, though? It's supposed to be democracy. Isn't the people supposed to decide? And it's funny how, the roadblocks that people are putting up and saying you don't have an answer for this, that, or the other thing, they're totally oblivious to the fact that Albertans, people who are here, people who voted, that we are for an independent nation. We're actually going to have a voice. Like they're against that. It's insane. It's insane how people don't understand that the whole point of this is to create a country that is not Canada. But we don't hate Canada. No, I don't hate Canadians
at all.
And I just don't see a way out of this anymore. And this is where we are.
Yeah, and maybe two things. Finishing up on the transition planning a little bit. So just want to give a bit of background. We are writing those papers, roughly 19 subject areas. They're going to be reviewed by people who know the area. Many cases, they're written by subject matter experts. So it's not Dennis and Keith madly writing away in a dark corner somewhere. It's guys who know the subject area. They're actively writing, okay, how do you handle air traffic control? What's the right way to approach policing? What's the right way to do border services? All those kind of things are being built by people who know those subject areas. Mm-hmm. They're going to get reviewed. We're checking them for integration to make sure they all line up with each other. And we'll publish roughly the end of July. And then we will have a version of the transition plan. And most critically, we'll have a budget. Danielle Smith went online and said 400 billion, and other people have said 300 billion. complete and utter crap.
Yep. I was just going to get to that.
Total
too.
crap.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole Danielle Smith, the Premier Smith thing. She was actually on my show and people said that I wasn't hard enough on her, which I went and I looked back at the show and 100% I wasn't hard enough on her. But the beautiful thing about this is she's going to be on my show every month now. So
Perfect.
I have an opportunity next month and the month after that and the month after that. Right. And lately what I've been seeing come out of the Smith government is I'm a little bit disappointed in how
Me
she's
too.
advocating for, to remain in Canada when actually she should just be governing the province. Right. And that's, she allowed us to go use direct democracy, go to a referendum on a referendum. And then from there, we'll give the government a mandate of what we want. Right. So I'm a little bit disappointed on that. That's going to be on my next show. I'm going to be asking her questions surrounding that. But what do you see the elected officials doing? Because the Calgary Stampede was literally just here. And I was in a lot of those rooms with a lot of those elected officials. And I noticed one thing. Same people, different venue. It was like that everywhere I went. It was the same people in the room, the same bureaucrats, the same money, the same people. And they brought in Doug Ford. They brought in, liberal ministers. And they all sat there and they're saying, look at us, guys. Canada's working. We're putting a pipeline in. Yeah, and we're all friends. We're shaking hands. We're doing photo ops, and we're gonna get this built. And you don't need to be independent. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, it's really nice to go into a room and shake hands and take pretty pictures. That doesn't get stuff done.
No, it doesn't.
And I look at these MOUs. Back in my business background, MOU was the very beginning. It literally was usually non-binding. Just, hey, you and I agree to do sort of something that sort of looks like this. Show me the hard contracts. Show me the private proponents that are actually going to build this stuff. Government can't build crap. Look at how they run the post office, for crying out loud.
Yeah, good point.
So they're not builders. They're bureaucrats. I've worked in government a couple of times. I saw it up close. I've experienced it. Didn't like it, by the way. So for them to go and talk and beat their gums, that's wonderful. But then look and see what we're doing. So they actually are now saying things like EB in BC will get some sort of tolling or tariff on Alberta oil that transits BC.
Yeah.
Where is that in the government of Canada structure?
It's not.
It's supposed to be eliminated under our federal structure, yet we're going ahead with it. Doug Ford, oh, wonderful man, wonderful. Let's build a pipeline over the Canadian Shield into Sarnia. Where's the market?
Yeah.
Tell me again where that extra million barrels a day is going to go. Sarnia is well supplied to the U.S.
Yeah.
Line 5.
Yeah.
Why do we need another line?
Yeah.
Are we going to ship it to Montreal? It's going to go out to the East Coast?
Yeah.
They've already said no way.
Yeah.
And you think Plamondon under, if the election in Quebec goes away, I think it will, he's going to allow Alberta oil across? Not on God's green earth.
No.
So when I hear all this stuff and I hear all these guys go, that means I think they're over the target.
Yeah.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
That maybe we're right.
I think
Maybe
they
this
know
is the
we're
best
right.
answer.
Yeah, I think they know we're right. I think honestly, because you have people like me, people like yourself, and many of you guys watching right now that you didn't come to this lightly. It's not like you decided, oh, okay, you know what, screw Canada. I just want to become independent because this is such a great movement. This takes hours and hours of volunteer time and doing your research to figure out what's exactly going on and what this might look like. And then look at the work that you're doing with the white paper with Keith Wilson and many other people. But what you said back then was, about David Eby, Doug Ford, Quebec, all of that stuff is all the proof that anybody should need, in my opinion, that Canada's not working. So when they were in the Stampede, taking pictures, shaking those hands, kissing the babies, and saying Canada's working, you got a guy with David Eby that was paid off $13 billion basically to get out of the way. And then before that, it was a condo buyout to get out of the way. You have Wab Kinew, who's in Manitoba, who is an NDP diehard. You got to get to him. What are you going to give him? So again, ladies and gentlemen, we're bribing other Canadians to get our oil and gas to market that pays for social services that makes our country better. Make it make sense.
Yeah, there's no way it does make sense. And I go on to other structural failures. Okay, let's say they actually build the pipelines. Well, we still haven't changed the representation in the House of Commons. The fact that PEI has far more strength per voter than we do here. The Senate is still appointed and largely liberal, certainly not aligned with the needs of each province. The courts are still the highest authority in the land as opposed to Parliament, something that Pierre Trudeau did to us. All these things are still in place, and I see no plan by anybody to remediate those things.
Mhm.
If Carney stood up tomorrow and said, we're holding a constitutional conference, we're building a proper Bill of Rights, we're making an elected Senate or some better structure for the Senate, and so on and so forth, I might say, okay, maybe it's worth listening to the guy. But placating us with a couple of pipelines, especially with carbon capture tied to it, is ridiculous. They're
Yeah.
trying to buy us off, and I think it means we are on target.
Well, absolutely, 100%. That Pathways project, for instance, is a waste of taxpayer dollars
Totally.
to dump CO2 in the ground that is absolutely going to do nothing for anybody. It's just a waste of taxpayer dollars to I don't actually know what it's for, because if you look at it, Brookfield's probably involved one way or another. Brookfield's you can go down that rabbit hole all day and find out where they're making money, but they've never made more money than they've ever made since Mark Carney's been in power.
Right.
I can tell you that, and that's facts. You can go look that up. The thing is the importance of Alberta independence is different for everybody, I think.
Yes.
I look at it for the future. I own a home, right? I
Me
own a
too.
home. I have a car. It's not about me. It's about the future of this province.
Yes.
And going back to Ottawa, I was dumb. I was to sit there, and I could say this, and I've said this publicly. When I supported Pierre Poilievre in Battle River Crowfoot, I thought if he wins, there's going to be some real change. And then, like I said, when they started crossing the floor, that's when I kind of changed my tune. I looked at my wife. I said, we got to support Alberta independence. And if you don't want to support Alberta independence, I'm supporting Alberta
Yeah, I'm going to do
independence.
it anyway.
Right. And so she hasn't publicly come out and said that she supports Alberta independence yet. And she hasn't even told me. Right. But I think she might. Maybe her and I'll do a show on that. But how long have we sent Conservatives, members of Parliament, to Ottawa to be representing Alberta? Never mind Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, right? Everywhere in the West. And they have not been able to get anything done.
No.
It's the British parliamentary system.
Well, I mean, look at Stephen Harper.
Yeah.
We had a Conservative Prime Minister. He was one of the authors of the Firewall Letter.
Mhm.
He supported all the kinds of things we think need to be done. And he was in office for 10 years. And I know he had some crises and minority governments, but he was unable to make any real material change to anything. Look at even Jason Kenney with the equalization referendum a few years back. He wrote letters, he got nothing.
Mhm.
Silence, crickets. So it's not like we haven't tried. We've been trying to do this since the 70s. My first eye-opening moment on the whole thing, maybe Canada's not working, was the NEP back in 1982.
Okay. I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, it's
So-
okay. I'm an old guy. I remember I lived downtown as a young guy, 23 years old, and I was walking down the street before the NEP, and it was bustling, and buildings were coming up, and people were running around, and really active and hectic. Wonderful place. NEP comes in. A few months later, construction sites shut down. No traffic. Layoffs were starting to happen. Everything just died.
Yeah.
Killed because of some guys in Ottawa making a decision that perhaps we ought to get more of the profit out of Alberta oil for the rest of Canada rather than the people that own it, maybe the people of Alberta. You start seeing those kind of things happen, you start to move.
Yeah, well, if we want to go to a more recent time under Justin Trudeau, we had Jagmeet Singh sitting there as like a proxy prime minister.
Yep.
And he was basically controlling the writ. He was literally, you can do this, Justin, if you do this. And then just recently with Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party, which I believe is a 1-seat party right now,
So. Yep.
was able to basically prop up the Liberal government with a budget,
Yep.
right? And a non-confidence vote. Like, the system's broke.
Yes.
There's no doubt if you look at the system, there are projects that just can't get done. So we're going to get into First Nations.
Okay.
It's a very polarizing topic. I understand it. I've been talking about it a lot. I am First Nations.
Okay.
I am First Nations. I have a status card. I get chastised for being a pretendian all over the place. So we're going to get to First Nations in a second. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, please like and share the live everywhere. No matter which stream you're looking at, it doesn't really matter. Share it to your groups, share it to your family, share it to your Liberal grandma. It doesn't really matter. Maybe she won't invite you over for Christmas dinner. That might be okay. But AlbertaTelethon.com, ladies and gentlemen. We're trying to get money to these TPAs. That's what we're trying to do. This stream is going from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's ending off at Paul's Pizza in Airdrie. So if you guys can make it up there to Airdrie tonight, that would be absolutely amazing. But guys, donate to your TPA. Like I said, if you're just joining in, I use my Danny Bucks. I'm giving $100 to Jason Levine's TPA. He's the next guest on the show here. I'll just leave it right here for him, and then he can have it. And but yeah, we appreciate all the support for you guys tuning in. Please like and share. First Nations. All right. So the First Nations have been having a big stink.
Yep.
And one
or at
thing,
least their leaders have.
their leaders, yes. And that's very important because Sunday night I'm recording an episode with the First Nations guy who is on our side. And and basically there are a lot of them on our side. I tried recording with 4 other people. Once people found out who it was, then all of a sudden they said, no, I can't do it because they were getting bullied and harassed and everything else. And that's their right to do so. I understand it. Their leaders are upset. They're basically gaslighting, I believe, the population and saying that we're going against their treaty rights for asking a question. My confusion there is this, and I don't know your stance on this, but if that is what they're going to stand on and that's what they're going to fight, that means every time the government makes a decision in the legislature, they need consultation under their understanding.
Yes. And what does consultation mean?
Yeah.
In normal world, consultation, if I have to consult with you on a topic, I hear your opinion, we discuss it, I see what can be done to work in your thoughts or what you desire into what I'm doing. And at some point you may decide to agree to disagree. And sorry, I'm going ahead of this anyway. And other times you say, hey, we were able to work out some middle ground we both live with. That's consultation. What I hear a lot of these Indigenous leaders saying is they want to veto. They don't like something or somebody or some question or some act or some law. They want to stop it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not consultation. That's a veto.
Yeah.
And I think on independence, the part that people lose is that, the Indian Act is not exactly working well.
No.
I've got a couple of people I deal with a lot, First Nations people. I ask them things. I've given them clauses out of the Constitution relating to First Nations and ask them things like, could you live with this? If this is how we handle treaty rights, could you live with it? Now, it's a small number of people, but they say, yeah, we could, because we don't like the Indian Act as it stands. And we'd rather take our chances with Alberta and have a new deal with a new structure that gives us much better options and equality. I think then people, they would take that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is what I like to remind people too, because I've dealt with treaties, my own treaty, and then I've read other treaties. There's a big misinterpretation of the treaty. People don't understand what ceded territory means. That's a whole other argument for another day. I don't want to get into that in this one. But there's not one treaty in this country that has ever been adhered to by the federal crown. There just isn't. So what I see is we have leaders who are misrepresenting their base and their people, going out there for one reason or another to now stay in Canada and to go as far as going across the pond to the king. Right. And taking a photo op with him. And you got Naheed Nenshi on the other side taking photo ops and playing political games. But if you had a First Nations chief in the room today, if we had one in the room, and I'm working on it, I'm trying to get First Nations chief. So if you're a First Nation chief out there and you want to have a discussion with me respectfully, I absolutely want to talk to you. What would you say to them?
I'd be saying, is your life under Canada what you want it to be for yourself and your people, all the people you represent? Is that what you really want for them? Because your poverty rate's through the roof. Your life expectancy is 19 years shorter than for non-Indigenous people. Is that what you really want? If the answer is yes, that's what I want, that paints one picture. If the answer is no, okay, what's the path by which these things get resolved? Ever more money? Or how about we try a different approach? What about pursuing freedom, true freedom for your people? Let Indigenous people, they should have their own reserves and own it, be their land. Yes, we have to accommodate the fact that we have obligations that we made to them 100 plus years ago. We have to discharge that contract, as it were. We have to deal with those things. How about we deal with them in a more modern way, in a way that will persevere and last for a long time, but more critically, it will give you and your people the freedom to run things the way you and your people want them to be run.
Yeah, and that's very well said. And the important thing that I've been saying is actually have real consequences for people breaking the rules and the law. Because right now, the federal government, we still have, I believe, 6, and don't quote me on this, but 6 First Nation reservations with boil water advisories, no clean drinking water. It's 2026. Justin Trudeau, back in his campaign, he said that he was going to get rid of that altogether. He was going to clean up the drinking water. He had 10 years to do it. Never did it. Right. But he definitely sat in front of a rock that was in the ground with a teddy bear to win the election. And in Saskatchewan with the residential schools, the First Nations are great people. They're beautiful people. They have a rich heritage, and they have a very, very stained past.
Yes.
And the Crown has treated them terribly. I look at Alberta independence as being that opportunity to right a wrong.
Yes.
And make a better deal with them that will have real consequences if those deals are broken. And it just boggles my mind and frustrating that they're just siding with the Crown. And it's not First Nations people. I think you said it good. It said it right. It's the leaders.
Yeah.
It's truly the leaders.
Well, and Ezra Levant did some polling, and now it was not huge numbers, but he saw close to half of Indigenous people are in favor of separation, the rank and file, the normal, the average First Nations person. So you think roughly half are on board. That's not that far off what the rest of the of Alberta thinks, and maybe even slightly higher. So I think we have to take into account that we want to build a country where all are equal. We want to build a country where all have freedom to live their life as best they can, and that includes First Nations people. It brings tears to my eyes to see all this suffering and all this pain that's been caused for a century or more, when there are ways to fix it.
Yeah.
So let's fix it for once, for all.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do it again. AlbertaTelethon.com. I'm reminding you of it. This is the whole purpose of this. Let's get those TPAs filled up. We have to get some money out to them. We are combating CBC, CTV, Global, and also Forever Canadian, who doesn't have to report anything. And they're driving around this province in a bus, and they're saying that they're not campaigning, which is absolutely insane. I'm going to read this little sheet of paper for you guys just so I get it all right. Just so this might be some information you can pass on to your friends as well. So the website for that is albertatelethon.com. Remember, this is a fundraiser, and we need you guys to donate. That's what we're looking for, guys. Go to the website, click the link, and fill in the appropriate information for the third-party advertiser, TPA, you want to donate to. Be sure to fill in all of the information, name, address, etc., to save the TPA a lot of aggravation when reporting to Elections Alberta. Failure to fill in all information while using PayPal and e-transfers may result in your donation going to Elections Alberta at the end of the campaign. This will be out of the TPA's hands. You can donate up to $5,000 through the entire referendum campaign. Each family member can also donate up to $5,000. Donations of $50 and under do not require personal information. $250 donations and below per TPA, and your name does not appear on the Elections Alberta website. You must be an Alberta resident. That is clear, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot be from anywhere else. You must be from Alberta. And none of the TPAs will share your personal information. For more information, go to Elections Alberta website, elections.ab.ca. Let's talk about undecided people. Let's talk about the people that I run into every day now. Right now, I'm between a ball tournament. So I was at my daughter's ball game this morning, had to change in the parking lot, got into this stuff, and then I'm going to change again and go back to the ball field. And a guy was asking me, and he knows who I am. He knows I have a podcast. He knows I'm pro-independence. And he said, Lawrence, he's like, I just don't understand why we can't fix Canada. And we talked about it a little bit already, you and I, in this show. But what do we say to those people? Because I give them the $1.3 trillion in debt, 590 with Harper. Like, how can you see after $3 trillion in 2030 what this is going to look like? Some of them just are comfortable in the status quo. And what do we say to them? What else can we give to them? Is there anything in the value of freedom that we can give to them? Is there something that we can be saying different?
Well, I think we've covered some of this already. I mean, where's Canada going to be in 10 years if we don't change our trajectory? Show me a path. That's the thing I ask them. Let's discuss what's wrong. Structural problems with government, courts, highest authority in the land, the spending. We discussed all that. Okay, so let's agree on the set of problems. And quite often people say, yeah, I agree with that. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. Fine. What do we do about it? Let's take them one by one. How do you fix the overspending? How do you fix the representation question? How do you deal with equalization? And what really gets to me? Not one of them has ever given a solid answer. No one's come back and said, okay, here's a path by which you can remediate the Constitution, change these things, go back to the older system where Parliament was supreme, blah, blah, blah. You don't see that at all.
Mhm.
So then at some point you have to discuss with these people and say, so there is no path within Canada to fix it.
Yeah.
Let's take my side for a minute. Let's pretend that you're willing to be independent. What would the country of Alberta look like? And that's where the value of freedom comes in. Because that document was put together to make the case that an independent Alberta is fiscally viable. It was not, here are the policies of future Alberta. They're example policies. It's meant to say, if we just keep the money we send out today, keep it in Alberta, we have enough money to keep the provincial spending the way it is today, as country spending, compensate for all the federal programs and transfers that currently go out, but come back, stand up and operate the services like military and policing and so forth that we need, that are provided by Canada, and still have enough left over to be able to give some tax relief.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, let's walk through those numbers.
Yeah.
Where have I got it wrong? I've had dozens of conversations with people. Prove me wrong. Find in that document where the numbers are wrong, where the assumptions are so far out as to make the outcome change. And to this point, no one has.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, we're going to do an update, or I'm going to do an update on the value of freedom. Once you get the transition plan done and its costing done, we'll make the two tie together. And there's some things that, if I could do it over again, I wouldn't have done it that way.
Mhm.
Some of the structures of how we put the numbers together and clear it up and clean it up. And I think, but the case remains solid.
Yeah.
So now, hypothetical person at your ball tournament.
Mhm.
So here's the Canadian world where there's no path to fix this. Here's the Alberta world. Has it got some risk to it? Absolutely. But let's presume we can work through the risks. Albertans are good at dealing with tough problems and solving them. We'll solve these as well. Now, when we get there, let me see, you have lower taxes. You're going to have a freer country. You're viable, very viable financially. You're next door to the largest market in the world, the USA.
Mhm.
You know, there's no reason why we can't have good relations with Canada. There's no reason why not. What's bad about that answer?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And when you talk about having a relationship with Canada, that has to happen,
Totally.
right? And people think that Canada is just going to cut off Alberta from everything. They don't realize that we have the CPKC line that goes through Alberta
Yeah.
from the Port of Vancouver. And I don't know about you, but every time there's a port strike, the shelves go bare in
Yep.
places, right? Canadian Tire's not getting their stuff. We have CN Rail that goes through Alberta. We have corridors that go through Alberta. There's negotiating power here.
Yes.
And do you know much about the negotiating power, what that would look like in negotiating, or have you guys thought about that?
In depth. I mean,
Okay.
that's actually last couple of days. That's some of the white papers I was working on. I mean, the guts of it is we do have very large leverage with Canada. There's about 90 billion of east-west trade that occurs. The rest of our trade is with the Americans, 80% plus. So 90 billion's not a small number. It's a big number. But you know what? We can stop that trade. And the rest of Canada imports from us mainly things that are hard to displace: energy and agricultural products. What do we import from the rest of Canada? Manufactured goods, financial services like banks, consulting services and so forth. Well, you know what? The Americans would love to provide those to us. And you know what? It's also good for Canada to sell those services to us. So why wouldn't we come to the point where we rapidly realize the best answer is to make a workable treaty agreement with the Canadians, that they can do business in Alberta, we can do business in Canada, and we'll do it on a fair and reasonable basis.
They would be forced, right? Like
They would.
absolutely be forced.
We
to
could
have-
force them.
Yeah, to have to negotiate with us because they get so much from Alberta.
Yeah.
Everything has to come through Alberta.
Yes.
And that's not something that I want to see where we're fighting like, two cats in a barn. I want to see us collaborate and work together. And, moving into the kind of the last segment of the show here is back to when we were talking about the stampede with, them all coming here and trying to show Canada is working. It's kind of what Carney's doing now.
Yes.
Right. Carney has come out with all these major announcements.
Yep.
He wants to do all this power grid. He wants to upgrade it. He's saying, stay, not leave, like all this other stuff. And Carney, I believe, is just here to do what Trudeau was doing and just finish it off. That's my belief anyway. And he's very anti-Alberta and trying to be pro-Alberta.
He's a central control guy.
Mhm.
He could very well fit in the Soviet Union of the 80s and before. He believes in centralized control and centralized operation. That model's been proven false over and over and over again. And so he's trying to essentially run roughshod over things like provincial jurisdictions. I worked at the grid operator, the ISO, for a few years. One of my more interesting pieces of work. And power is essentially a provincial jurisdiction.
Mhm.
Every province has a different. There is some benefit in making sure the grids interconnect and can support each other, but that's a pretty limited thing, and it's done today. We already get power in from BC to handle
Yep.
brownout type conditions and so forth, and they get some stuff from us too. So why are you trying to exert more control on that particular part of provincial life?
Mhm.
Because he's a centralist.
Mhm.
He wants it centralized. He wants to get rid of the option for Alberta to do its own thing because he knows Alberta's different.
Yeah.
He knows Alberta's strong, and he knows if he doesn't stop it now, it may never be able to be stopped.
Well, Albertans are just built different, right?
Totally.
We are just built different. And you look, we'll go back to Marty, who's coming on here in a minute. That guy was in snowstorms, sleet, and
Yes.
and rain, and many of you guys out there were doing the exact same thing. So thank you for that. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and my family's heart. We're just built different. We believe in something. We want to achieve that goal and achieve that mission. Mark Carney and Danielle Smith and many of these premiers are doing a damn good job, though, at chiseling away at people's already brainwashed people through the CBC and the CTV. And it's comments all the time. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then now with the threats of violence and all this other stuff, I think by donating to these TPAs, I think what we're doing today with the telethon is very important.
Yes.
So let's close it off. Let's talk about the TPAs. Let's talk about what they're going to do and how it complements the stuff that you guys are doing with the white paper.
Okay. So the TPAs, as we said earlier, they're pursuing all sorts of paths, signs, the spreading the message around, door-to-door type stuff, get out the vote kind of stuff, all sorts of things that I'm not really good at.
Yeah.
But what they need is information and content. So there are many people who rightly ask, okay, Dennis, you made the financial case in the Valley of Freedom that, hey, we can survive financially. But I don't see how we get from being a province to being a nation. That feels awfully scary.
Mhm.
And have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So we need to write it out in black and white. And that's what the transition plan is going to be.
Okay.
Now there'll be a very complex version with all the jargon in it. We're going to make a simplified version and communication materials so people can get it without having to read through. Because most of these papers are between 20 and 40 pages
Yeah,
long.
nobody's reading that.
Yeah, I don't like reading it. That's my job right now.
Nobody's reading that.
It's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah.
But we want to make the case that there is a workable, doable, plausible path to get from being a province to being a country.
Okay.
When we put that out, it will not be under Keith and Tanya and their third-party advertiser. It will be a bunch of us volunteers went through a hypothetical case, put together a plan that we believe would work, and now all the TPAs can use it, share it, and promote it to people who have that question.
Yeah. No, that's super important. So what is there a timeline? Do we have a timeline yet? Obviously it's got to come out before October, right?
Yeah.
Before we go in October.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you guys are doing work, and it is important to emphasize these aren't Alberta rednecks, hanging out and just and putting together a white paper. You guys are professionals with professional backgrounds from industry.
Oh, yeah.
And you're putting this all together.
Oh yeah, we've got people who are recognized subject matter experts in their field, people from oil and gas, people from transportation, people from taxation. We've got lawyers involved, of course, because many of them see the agreements that operate the country in detail. There's about 40-ish people involved right now. The timeline that we're aiming for is end of July to put at least the first draft out, and it will be a draft.
Mhm.
We're not going to put it out there and say, here is the plan, go chisel it in stone somewhere. It's going to be, here's what we think will work. And then we'll look for other people who know the area to say, yeah, but you missed this, or I think there's a better way to do that. We're already taking input.
I think that's actually the appropriate way to do it, to be honest, is you guys get together in a room. You guys are putting this together, put it out to the people as a draft, because you never know who's going to read that.
Right.
There's going to be another expert from some industry or some other guy who might have a better idea. And I think that's what we need to do as Albertans. I think we do that really well as Albertans, and that's why they try to shut down us having conversations. You know, I just wanted to remind the viewers at home that today C9 has started. So the Online Hate Speech Act has now started. So there'll be another reason to go and support Alberta independence, because bullshit bills like that will not happen in an independent Alberta. We'd be free to speak our mind and do what we're doing. You know, so I look forward to that white paper end of July. You said that's a draft, and any final words that you have for people on Alberta independence, on the undecided, because on the decided, like, we can sit here and talk. We're both decided, right? We want Alberta independence, and we can sit here and have these conversations, and I love having these conversations. But I'm really starting to love having the conversation with the undecided, and what's the best ammo we can give somebody to go in.
That is the core group. You know, I mean, the town halls are wonderful and they're great fun, but face it, everyone in the room is already decided, or so close to it that the difference doesn't matter. It's the people you know, the people you work with, to ask them, hey, what's your position on it? Have a respectful conversation with them and say, why do you think we should stay in Canada? What are your concerns with the things we talked about? And try and give them information, not to try and force them to decide at the moment, but be respectful, be thoughtful, and say, hey, that's enough for today, but can we get together for a beer next week and discuss it further? That's the way you bring people over.
Yeah, you know what? I live in a little town outside of Calgary called Langdon.
Yep.
It is a redneck town. I'm not going to lie. It is. It's the good luck town. It's got a horseshoe as a symbol. And I was driving out because they were doing the Langdon Days Parade today, so I had to go a different way out. And there's a house that I never see because I don't go out that way, that had Forever Canadian plastered all over it. You want to know what I did?
What?
I drove by.
Yeah.
Right? I drove by. But yet, on the other side, we have people kicking over signs, spray painting signs, you know, being vandals to businesses. We don't need to do that on our side.
Never.
You know, our
never,
job,
never.
Our job is to educate, right? Our job is to love our province, do this for our kids. We don't have to get violent. We don't have to do that.
No, and you know what? They're all citizens.
Yeah.
We, you know, I pick on Bruce and Matt. We have radically different views on how the country should be run. But, you know, we're three good friends. We go for a beer, we laugh, we talk, we argue. Yeah, but what about this and what about that? We sat through 6 hours of sessions a few weeks ago. And you know what? We had good conversations. And there's no reason why people cannot have that same style of conversation with their neighbors, with their friends, their coworkers.
Absolutely. Well, Dennis, this was actually absolutely amazing. It's my first time talking to you, and I know I met you at the pancake breakfast last Sunday.
Yeah, indeed.
You came up, and we knew we were going to be matched up in this, and I was like, Dennis, I don't want to hear anything. I just want to go in there. I want to be raw. I want to be real. I just want to have a chat with you, and this actually was awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, the value of freedom right here. Can anybody get access to this?
It's online at the APP website. Download it and get it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, my man. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's an awkward one, but that works. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to go to albertatelethon.com. Let's get some money in these TPA's pockets. Let's do it together. Alberta is counting on you.
You stood on those stone cold governed steps, faith and freedom, loud and clear. Folding chairs and town hall stages spoke the truth they came to hear. They stood in line for hours, braved the cold and wind. You talked about their children and the mess we're living in. From the back row of the hall to the front row of the fight, you said if they're gonna hear us, it's gonna be tonight.
Come on, let's go. So that's going to be the battle cry for our movement.
Let's go! You came to sign on the freedom line. Ink on paper, hearts on fire. Every name like gasoline, kicking up that rebel choir. Let me shake your hand. Thank you for your time. Fired up voices, strong and true. You stepped up for Alberta. This one's for you.
I feel like I'm with friends here.
Yeah, and that's exactly correct. That's what the whole thing with all these events are for. People understand that they're part of a group of like-minded people that think and have the same ambitions and goals as they have.
You stare down that lens in your studio light. Coffee gone cold, face pale from the night. From the dark hours to the evening show, you hit go live and refuse to let go. Slow roll down from Edmonton, high beams cutting through. Northbound up from Calgary, every small town waiting on you. Truck stop coffee cooling between petitions in the rain. Call tables and gravel out sharpening every name. You came to sign on the freedom line. Ink on paper, hearts on fire. Every name like gasoline, kicking up that rebel choir. Let me shake your hand, thank you for your time. Fight up voices, strong and true. You stepped up for Alberta. This one's for you.
Again.
You filled up clipboards in sleet and rain, roadside lots by the highway chain, in echoing halls where the floors were bare. You passed that pen like a whispered prayer. You came to sign on the frozen ground, heard your own heartbeat like a drum's low sound. Looked around, saw you're not alone. Countless souls fighting for a home. You came to sign on the freedom line. Ink on paper, hearts on fire. Every name like gasoline, kicking up that rebel choir. Let me shake your hand, thank you for your time.
We've gotten by round 3. Now we're in the Stanley Cup final. And away we go. Thank you very much. God bless all of you.
For Alberta, and I raise this one to you. This one's for you. You stood that line.
And we're back live. Before I introduce everybody, including myself, I'm laughing because Max, our producer, was in the background counting down 10, 9, 8, and Jason said the same thing that was going on in my mind. We're on a rocket. That, by the way, that would be insane to be on top of a rocket waiting to be launched. Like, I don't think I would do it.
It'd be less stressful than this is right now, though. I think it'd be good.
So welcome back, folks. I'm the host for the next hour of the Alberta Telethon. So I'm Marty up north. I'm sure some of you guys know me. If you don't, I'm just one of the local guys here in Calgary who got a bit of a following during independence because I spent about 200 hours on the side of the highway collecting signatures. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So, and with me today, so by the way, this is a telethon about third-party advertisers. So you're not actually going to donate to this telethon. You're going to donate to third-party advertisers. And I have with me some of the original people who set up a TPA. I have Jason Levine and his wife Paula, and your TPA is simply
The Levine Show TPA.
The Levine Show.
Yes.
Is it your first TPA, or did you have one for other events in the past?
We had one for the petition period.
Yes.
So we were one of the few that actually did a TPA during the petition period, the signature period.
Yeah.
And then we did a second TPA during the referendum campaigning period.
Okay. And so for viewers, right, TPA is third-party advertising.
Advertisers.
Third-party advertisers, right? So, and there's several various or different ones that can be set up. Some are set up for campaigning during political campaigns.
That's
Some
right.
are set up. Now, there's been a bit of confusion because yours is not some of the ones set up currently are for the referendum. Yours is set up for
The referendum.
for the referendum also.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was under a different category.
No.
So you're
No.
set up for the referendum. Okay. And how complicated is that just to set up a TPA?
Well, let's go ahead. You
Yeah.
did it all the work.
Well, it's fairly straightforward. The whole point is, though, that there is forms to fill out. And one of the interesting things I discovered is that when completing the form, the very last set is they ask you to basically answer the 10-question referendum that's upcoming, I guess, to see what side are you on. But it was very, very interesting. That was the new discovery, the yes. So questions 1 to 9 was a yes, no. And then the very last one, question 10, was option 1, option 2.
Wow. Okay. And why would you set up a TPA? What motivated you guys to want to set up a TPA?
The first one during the petition period, when the signatures were being collected, we were doing lots of events, going out there doing our events, which we're doing anyways. We've been doing this way before the petition period. But there was concern about whether or not we would be crossing the line in any way, shape, or form, because we do collect donations to put our events on, and we are talking about independent subject matter. But we weren't actually saying go sign. We weren't actually doing that step of saying go sign, because if you did that, then you have to be a TPA. And then as this kind of grew out, Mitch Sylvester and his team, Stay Free Alberta, felt far more comfortable using events that have TPAs associated with them if they're going to send campaign or canvassers there. So we wanted to make sure everybody was comfortable with that.
Yeah, I guess we should go back to that, right? So during a political campaign in Alberta and probably most jurisdictions in Canada, people are not simply free to advertise, to share their opinions. I mean, the moment you share your opinion, you're crossing the line. I guess explain that to us. Like, what's the difference between being a journalist, because you guys are fundamentally journalists, but then you sort of cross a line during a campaign where you're not just reporting on the campaign? Is that the concept?
Well, during the first petition period, when we made the conscious decision not to cross that line, which would be go sign the petition. Like, if you say go sign the petition, you're a proponent of it.
Yeah.
And then that means you've crossed the line. And also you need to spend over $1,000 on your advertising towards that messaging. If you do those two things, then you're now in the third-party advertiser category. We made the conscious decision during the petition period not to cross that line because we wanted to focus on the journalism and have speakers. Now, luckily for the Alberta elections rules for financial contributions, if you're doing speeches, commentary, news, those are exceptions.
Right.
You don't actually have to register for it. But we took that step just to be safe and be careful. And we also did all our reporting as well. When it comes to the current one, the referendum one, because we've taken the conscious decision to say vote option 2 on October 19th, that crosses the line. And we definitely are spending a lot more than $1,000 on this campaign. So we have to be a third party.
Yeah. And before we move on, I just want to, just about you crossed the line in a big way in the past, right? You actually campaigned.
Oh, a federal election, municipal election. I've been doing a lot to get involved because that was my initial motivation, was to represent my neighbors and get involved behind the scenes inside of lawmaking. That's why I ran as an MP in the federal and a councillor for the municipal.
So you've been a private citizen, still are.
Yeah.
You've ran for politics, not successfully though at this point.
Well, it was a great learning experience. So from that perspective, for sure.
Yeah. And then you've done media, and now you're, in this instance, you're a bit of a, what would you call it? A lobbyist?
Campaigner. I think campaigner is a fair word.
A proper word, campaigner.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, excellent. You know, I mean, I was in sort of not quite the same way. I mean, I'm a private citizen, right? A lot of people think that I'm more than a private citizen, but I'm a private citizen who perhaps has an audience, and that gives me a bigger voice. But I am just still a private citizen. During the petition period, at the beginning, when Mitch filed his paperwork and started collecting signatures, I did not become a canvasser at first because I was worried of perhaps repercussions from Elections Alberta. I literally was worried about that they would come and say, well, you're not a private citizen, you have too much of an audience. And so then I explored it a little bit, and then I realized, no, I'm a private citizen and I can collect signatures.
Yeah.
And so I was reluctant at first, but then I jumped on board and became a canvasser.
And what a canvasser you became.
Yes.
Holy smokes. Thank you, Marty.
Well, I mean, I joke about that. I spent, not just me, actually, me and my wife, Karen, we became somewhat of a popular among canvassers because we had a very, I call it like a fishing spot. right? For me, canvassing was like fishing. At first, I'd load my pickup truck with my signs. The flags were the lure, and then I would drive around. And in the beginning, I tried a couple of different places. I honestly thought at first it was going to be very easy to just collect signatures. It took a lot of effort. And eventually we found a cool spot. It was my fishing hole, right? So it was the corner of Bow Trail and Bears Paw Road. And we became a fixture there. And people would come and sign a petition. And we spent, I'd say, about 200 hours, like 200 hours all told, collecting. By the way, and the people who came to visit us, I was amazed at the generosity. And I was worried about that too, right? I had people who would bring something as simple as a coffee. And I would post about that, a picture of me with somebody and saying, thank you for bringing me a coffee. And I had people report us.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. And that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reporting me for accepting a coffee. I'm like, anyways, so what do you guys, what are you doing with this money that you're collecting as a third party advertiser?
Every dime in, a dime has to go out. We have to report all of that by the end, because anything that's left over at the end, it has to go to a charity or Elections Alberta. So we want $0 left at the end.
Back to Elections Alberta?
You have to spend it.
Spend it.
Spend it. So we're doing lawn signs, we're doing digital billboards, we're doing events, booking the venues, flying people out, accommodations. All of those are valid campaign expenses.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of that.
And then you're I guess you're constantly navigating that fine line between, because you still are journalists, or do you suspend your journalism during this period?
Well, we keep the show separate from the TPA. So our morning show is still the morning show. We bring on guests, anybody that wants to come on, we talk to them. But then after we take that hat off, we get onto the road and do other things. We keep it separate.
Yeah.
And Paula has been fantastic with the books and making sure everything's separate, so we're not crossing any lines. In fact, she gets so detail oriented that she'll call Elections Alberta and say, we want to sell hats. How are we allowed to do that? We want to do it correctly. How do we allocate that money? How do we account for the cost? How do we do that? And she does a lot of those phone calls.
We'll come back to that. I want to know about the relationship you personally have with Elections Alberta. But before we go too far, so like I said, this is a telethon. I have a hard time with that word. I don't know why. Telethon. And
because there's no phones around.
Yeah. Right. So if you go to www.albertatelethon.com, you will see all the TPAs. They're all listed there. So at this event this week, we're promoting 7 of them. I think there's a few more. I think there's about 12, maybe 13. I don't think I might be mistaken, but I think the 12 or the 7 are listed on the screen next to me here. If not, go to albertatelethon.com and they're listed there. Now, if you want to donate to them, you have to donate to them individually. Correct. And so in your case, what's your TPA called? Where do people go to donate to yours?
So the levineshow.com/TPA. And then you click on the donate button there. You can check our events. You can become a volunteer. You can request a lawn sign. Everything's on that particular page.
And so every TPA is probably set up differently, I imagine.
Different, but the same at the same time.
Different, but the same kind of thing. Okay. And what do you how do people donate? Is it credit cards? Is it PayPal? What is it?
So we do credit card and we also do e-transfer. So the way we did our e-transfer is you request the link from us by filling in the details we need in order to accept it. Because e-transfers, if we just put the email address on the website, people can send it to them and we don't collect their information. And if we don't know who they are and we can't contact them back, that money goes straight to Elections Alberta, not us.
Because of
because we don't have the details to record it.
Because that's the rule that they said and you're complying with the rule. Now, do they audit you? Elections Alberta?
They will at the end. At the end of it, we're going to be submitting all of the contributions that came in. We'll also be then accounting for each of our expenses. And yes, there will be an audit at the end. So we want to make sure as we go through each I is dotted and then each T is crossed, because again, if we receive something in and we cannot identify the contributor, we can't accept it, and we then subsequently submit it.
And there's rules around identifying the contributor, where the contributor's from.
Yes.
Where do they have to be from?
They have to be a resident of Alberta. Sorry for those who are out of province who would love to support the cause.
And the one who did.
And the one who did, the gentleman from Manitoba. He actually sent a contribution by credit cards. And when I looked, it's like, oh, Manitoba, sorry. So I reached out to him saying, sorry, we have to refund. He said, but I work in Alberta. I said, however, you're not a resident.
Wow.
So we did have to refund him his contribution, but it was really heartfelt to see that someone out of province wanted to contribute to the Alberta cause. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. So it has to live in Alberta. Now, I'm sure there's ways. I mean, if somebody lives outside of Alberta and you want to contribute or do something for the movement, I'm sure there's a way. What would you suggest for somebody like that?
Share the stuff out.
Yes.
Have conversations with people.
Mhm.
Reach out to people you know in Alberta.
Yeah.
That's another way to get people aware of what's going on and how to support that way. But when it comes to the financial contributions, unlike somebody else we'll talk about later, when it comes to the financial contributions, it has to be a resident of Alberta.
Now, I'm not advocating, loopholes, but I think there are probably sort of unintentional loopholes. Like if you're having an event and you have a bucket there and you're collecting a few bucks from people at that event, are you verifying that they're from Alberta?
So we
we
contacted Elections Alberta about that on two different fronts. One, who are the people? And two, how do we control whether or not they put $50 or less in there?
Yeah.
And what Elections Alberta actually guided us on is said you can pass the bucket and count it at the end. You don't have to do anything as the bucket's going around.
Right.
Yeah.
So they answered that question clearly because because in the federal election, we actually had to take attendance and then do the math and see what the average was. And if we fell outside the average, then we had some trouble. But
I'm in favor of some of this. I mean, I am in favor, but at the same time, it's an example of our democracy. Some of our institutions are becoming so complicated for just the average person to participate, right?
Yes.
Like to me, this is like, this is the steps you have to take as a third party advertiser, as a politician, as a candidate. Did you have to take similar steps?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Especially on the municipal one too. We had to make sure where donations were coming from, and they had to be from the area. We didn't actually do donations during the campaign. The municipal one, we actually just covered that ourselves. But the federal one, we had the same thing. We had to register everybody.
So being a politician is running is no longer just about, hey, putting your hand up at a nomination meeting and say, I'm happy to run as the MLA or the MP.
There's criminal record checks. We have to go through provide all court cases we've ever been involved in. There's a lot of background that goes into this now.
And to me, as an observer, it feels like certain people have to jump through more hoops than others. Because when I look at all the politicians that are elected at all levels in our country, I go, wow, there's no way that person did what you just said, right? Now, I mean, I want to jump in. I was going to go to the bit of the double standard, but before we go there, how is your relationship with Elections Alberta?
It's pretty good. I can't complain. They are available by email and by call. And when we have had this, like, we're going to be doing an event later. We've got some questions. I give them a call. I've been fortunate enough to get a call back if I've had to leave a message. So no complaints, quite frankly.
And the tools work,
and the tools work. It's a
little time consuming.
Yeah, it's time consuming. But my little wish list would be that right now we submit our contributions. We have the ability to do it throughout the day, and then we file on Thursdays. I'd love to do that with our expenses. So I have this concern that at the end of it all, I'm not just going to be giving them one number, but because I'm probably going to have to itemize everything. I'd love to be able to be submitting that right now. So that's on the suggestion box.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I don't want to get controversial here, but the private sector, you guys are providing some pretty important financial reporting and as part of transparency. And I don't think that transparency is reciprocated by our government.
No. In fact, there's 3 exceptions to who has to do the transparency requirements on any of this. If you're a political party, so NDP or UCP, if you're an MLA or constituency association, those are the 3 exceptions. They can go and advertise for this referendum all day long without disclosing anything, and they have none of the limits we have.
And okay, so let's go there. So they're right now on the let's call it the stay side. Is that what we're calling it, the stay side, or the forever communist side? I don't know. So on the stay side, there are a couple of groups that are prominent. One is, of course, Thomas Lukasik's group. In your opinion, should he be following the same rules as you?
Right. So I have some legal training, and there's 2 things I want to explain here. There's the letter of the law and then the spirit of the law.
Okay.
The letter of the law says you cannot go over 60 kilometers an hour. The spirit of the law is, well, in an emergency, you're running to the hospital, we will overlook it.
Yeah.
Under the letter of the law, he's on the safe side right now. because he's not even saying option 1. He's not
Mhm.
mentioning the date. He's not telling them what to do on the referendum, which is the line.
Yeah.
However, on the spirit of the law, is he campaigning? By all metrics and measures, for sure.
Right. So he's walking a very fine line. So his posters, for instance, don't say choose A or
Correct.
B. His
Correct.
posters are
Choose unity.
choose unity. Okay. So he gets away with that. And that was part of that was almost word for word in the bulletin that Elections Alberta put out yesterday
Yes.
or 2 days ago.
It was last week, and I read that one. It was basically, here, Thomas, here are the rules, and you're okay.
Yeah.
It's basically the bulletin.
Okay, because I made a comment on X. I thought, wow, they're making an interpretation based on him in particular. So
Yeah.
okay, so
it felt that way, sure.
it felt that way, and that's an example. Now there's another the For Alberta. No, is it
The
For
Vote to
Alberta
Stay?
for the Nenshi group? What's his For Alberta for
Something like that.
For Canada FAFC something like that.
yeah.
Anyway, so that's Nenshi.
Yeah.
And there's probably a little NDP logo
There is at
in
the very bottom of his
corner.
webpage. It says
Right, so-
NDP party.
So he goes around. He's at that point. He's a political party with representation in Alberta, and he has almost unlimited budget.
Yeah,
This-
using party funds, absolutely.
And the same thing for the Alberta Referendum 2026 website from Danielle Smith and the UCP.
Oh,
That
right,
one
right,
also
right.
falls under that exception.
I forget that one. Right. So she's okay. Right. Right. Yeah, I forget
Yeah.
that one. Who else?
Because
has
she's got all the 10 questions on there, and she has her position.
Now I
Well,
haven't gone to look. Do we still have a Liberal Party in Alberta? I think I'll have to go see where they stand on all of this, and then but then the new up and coming party. What are they called?
Oh yeah, the Tory one.
Yeah,
The Alberta Tories or something.
that's the
like that?
Alberta Party rebranded. Yeah, interesting, awesome. Yeah. Okay. So where do we go from here?
Let me give you some of the legal,
Mm.
not so much loopholes, but some of the things people don't understand that they can do. So
Not that you're advocating this. You're
No,
just
I'm just
pointing out that
providing the rules.
You're providing.
So the
rules.
rules are cash donations or donations of $50 or less does not require a TPA to get your identity. There's no rule that says you can't make a subsequent and a subsequent and a subsequent.
Yeah.
FYI. 250 and up, you end up on, no, not 250 and up, 250 and below,
Yeah.
you do not end up on the Alberta Elections Alberta website with your name in the report. But that's per TPA. That's not accumulative over the TPAs. So if you gave us 250 and another one 250, it's not like suddenly you end up on the website.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So that's cool. And the last one I'll let people know is there's no age limit. So every family member has the 5,000 limit.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a family of 4 would be 20,000.
I'm a weirdo. I'm in the same category as you in this sense. I do follow politics closely. I do go to the Elections Alberta and I go pull the financial reports. And I always encourage people. I mean, that's one of the things I do on X, right? Is I'm showing people how to be good citizens.
Yep.
And these are the things you should do. You should, if you're not involved politically, maybe you're not running, but you should still know what's going on and go to the website and go check out Thomas Lukaszik's financial statements. And then you will see just what you said. It's like, oh, interesting that 6 people with the same last name are donating $5,000 each, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this.
Well, just be clear, Thomas, he hasn't disclosed that for this
Right,
period. He
right,
did for
right.
his petition period, but he also has on his website, anybody can donate
Yeah.
and no limits. So he's doing
And he had
something
money
very
left over from the
187,000
Yeah,
or something.
that's a
like
lot.
That is a lot. Like for us, that would be everything. To
Yes.
us.
Yeah, and what's your limit? Your total limit?
607,000.
607,000. So between we're promoting 7 TPAs here. Like I said, there's perhaps a dozen, but if the 7 each do 600,000, that's only $3.5 million, like, or $4.5 million,
Yeah.
ballpark, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the other side, compared to Nenshi, compared to others, that's not a lot, and that doesn't go very far, right? Now, we learned this during the petition collection period, the signature collection period. Like people said, we should, Stay Free Alberta should have done more big events.
Mm-hmm.
A big event at most halls is what? Like if you're going to rent a hall somewhere and you're going to try and you did an event, you and I went on a tour for in April. What's a typical event?
I would say the average is about $800 or so
Right.
for 100 to 150 people. But if you get higher than that, then it definitely gets
So you get
Yes.
events and then buying flags, trying to get advertising. If we could get advertising, right? Like, could we run an ad on the CTV?
Technically in the CRCT, they can't deny you.
Yeah.
But in Canada, they don't have the equal opportunity rules like they do in the US. So the Democrats have to get so much, and so the Republicans, they have to have equal amount.
Yeah.
We don't have those rules.
Yeah.
And they can, in their own way, deny you, and then you have to take it up to the next stage.
Because I've honestly not seen any ads on the platforms that I'm familiar. Like I'm on YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
I see NDP ads on YouTube all the time. I haven't seen any of our group, our side, put any advertising so far. Maybe some will come. Where was I going with it? Oh, this is the question I was going to ask. So am I ever at risk of getting a knock and a letter from Elections Alberta? Like, I mean, I don't advertise. Do I advertise? How?
No.
I'm a private citizen. So how do I say to Elections Alberta, like, what's my defense?
Well, the two things you have to do in order to get their attention is, one, you have to say vote option 1, option 2, yes,
I am
no.
pretty close to saying that, right?
Okay.
I mean, I'm
but
promoting.
that's just one piece of it.
Yeah.
The second one is then you have to spend more than $1,000 towards the advertising of that.
Which I'm not. So
if you bought Facebook ads or X ads or boosted your posts, that would count.
Okay, but the $8 I pay Elon Musk to be on that platform.
Well, even that's well under 1,000.
It's well under 1,000, so I can stay on X all day long and say, "Hey, folks, vote to vote for Alberta independence."
And that bulletin you read laid that out.
Yeah,
it actually says, if you're on online and you're just doing posts, those don't count.
Yeah.
But if you boost them, then you're spending money, then they count.
But the fact that I make a few bucks online, that's
income.
That's income.
It has to be expenses
I'm not
to
using.
advertising.
Okay, so I'm allowed to make income, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So
You're clear.
I'm clear. I thought I was. I thought I was, but I mean,
and another way that you're clear is you're commentating. That is an exception to the rules. So if you're commentating, you can do that.
And that's a whole other topic for another day, right? I think. I mean, was it today? It's today. C9 goes into effect.
Right. So get all your speech out now. No, actually, it's retroactive.
That one's anti-hate. I'm more worried about what's the one? C22. There's a couple of bills that
34 is a bad one.
There's a couple of bills that are trying to. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. The ability to participate is getting tougher in our democracy. And they're making it tough to participate as a candidate. They're making it tough as a commentator and as we get censored.
Yep,
absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you said tough as a candidate. If you run as an independent candidate with no party affiliation, it's even harder. You have more financial restrictions. You cannot do anything until the writs drop all day long, all the time.
Yeah.
They can actually collect donations at any time and put it towards the campaign when the writ drops. As an independent, you can't do that. And you also have limits on your personal contributions that you don't see on a party level either. So there's even restrictions. So if you really think Canada can vote in an independent candidate, and I went through all of this, this is what was so difficult, was on the financial side, we actually have a lot more restrictions on us.
Probably the fastest path is run under one of the parties, and they
even
get,
the purple one
kicked out.
Even the purple one, but that does allow you to have a lot more access to financial support.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's I worry about the censorship side of it, and
it's getting worse.
I joke, but I don't think it's a joke. I think many of us will not be on social media in a year from now. We'll have been silenced to the point where we'll just give up.
There's no doubt Elections Alberta is watching right now.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that there's people out there trying to find a slip up and send it to Elections Alberta and report it. Like, I'm good. Probably 20% of everybody watching right now are hoping we fail because they're trying to find a way to get us in trouble.
Yeah, and I've lived it. I'm sure you live it, but there are things that happen in our lives now as commentators, as influencers, as people putting our necks out there on a cause. There are things that start to happen that are not coincidences.
No.
I've had way too many weird events in the last 4 months, and they're not coincidences. When somebody's parked out back in my 40 acres and almost has binoculars on me, they're listening to us.
And when we do the lawn sign handouts and stuff, there's always a vehicle somewhere down there that never picks up a sign and they just hang out. I'm sure people are watching.
When I had my pop-up, they weren't even hiding it.
I know, I saw that.
They weren't even hiding it. I mean, the way I was managing it, I had a pretty good group of volunteers, right? So I didn't have to go to the spot every day. So I would send people, but I got into the habit. It's like nobody's going alone. Like there'd be days where I might have to run somewhere, and Karen would say, "Well, I'll go," and I'll be like, "No. Like, you're not going alone. There's too many crazies." And there was one day where I wasn't there, and I get a text, and it's one of my buddies says, "There's a van parked across the street, and they got eyes on us," is what he said. I'm like, okay. So I drove over there. I went and knocked on the door, and that guy was not very nice right away. And then he put the camera on me. Turned out that he was that one was a genuine. I accept the explanation afterwards that he was genuinely looking for somebody else.
Okay.
But anyways, are they knocking on the door?
No.
Like I'm like I mean, time goes by fast, but it doesn't go by that fast. So so what else? So let's talk a bit about independence then. So what brought you guys onto the movement?
I'll start with that one. So before the federal election run, I was talking to a lot of people as part of my candidacy. I was going out there talking to people. And that was the number one thing people brought up, that they're tired of trying. Because as a federal candidate trying to change the system on the federal level, that's my platform. Here are the things I'm going to do for you. Here are the changes I want to bring to you. And a lot of people are going, well, that's great, but we just want out. We don't want you to try and fix it. It's already broken.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of conversations like that made me go, maybe they're right. And as I was making my way towards April 25th to actually have the vote, I started to understand that what the representation that was wanted from me in Parkland County was to represent sovereign Alberta, whatever that looked like, and head towards a vote and then represent them after the vote. So that's what I put into my campaign messaging, was the support of Maxime Bernier, who said, absolutely, a sovereign Alberta is the right message. Go do that. Because that's what I was going to promise to my constituency was, if you vote for this, I will be that voice in the House that fights for you on this, because that House is not going to fight for you.
But you, okay, so you heard that from constituents, and so you're acting as a representative. But had you made that same sort of?
Not yet.
You hadn't jumped there. Okay.
So on April 25th,
so you're late to the party, or late-ish to the party.
I went through an education phase first to understand really what are all the generational issues with Canada, because I came to Alberta late in life. And then that's why I got that education. And then the actual election results, where we saw the two parties go as high as they ever been, we've seen before. Third parties all took a nosedive. All Albertans got behind the Conservatives, and it didn't change anything. By 8:06, the results came out, and we weren't even counting our votes yet.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I'm like, that was the last chance to try and fix Canada in the old system. That's when, and let me share you what the actual decision was. Jeff Rath reached out to me election night, and he read to me his message to Alberta that he released the next day. And it was a great message. It was very inspiring. Then Mitch Sylvester talked to me. He said, we got 4,000 new members an hour since the election was called.
Yeah.
And we're very, very excited about going. And then Danielle Smith sent a message and said, watch for my announcement tomorrow. We're doing election reform, and we're going to make sure that everybody's ready for this. And that was when she dropped it to 10% and other things. That's when I knew that there was a huge drive to push towards independence amongst all of the movers and shakers.
That win that night was of Carney was a great push for independence. But I just want to come back to something. Perhaps maybe not everybody who heard what he just said is familiar with this, but I'll go back a few years earlier. Back in the so when there's an election, when there's a federal election, we used to be in a total blackout.
Yeah.
Back in those days,
that's right.
When in those days we used to get our news from CBC. So on the day of the election in Alberta, we would not get any news from what was happening in the rest of the country until the polls closed here.
That's right.
Now we could find out. So when I was a young adult, 25 years old, if I wanted to know, I could have called my mom in Ontario and say, "Hey, Mom, like, what are the results looking like?" Right? Today you can kind of do it with the internet, even though there's supposed to be blackouts. But as a 25-year-old. Once the CBC would start to report on the election at 8 o'clock, at 8, because the polls close here at 8:05, we knew the results.
Yeah.
And our vote hadn't counted. So, so
my personal decision that night was, it's broken. We tried. We did what we could. It's time to shift gears now.
Yeah, and you heard my story because Jason and I did it, and Paula, we did a tour in April, and I told my story a bunch of times. I mean, like you, I'm from Ontario. I'm a transplanted Albertan. I came here in the late 80s, early 90s. I came here in 89. And I came here for work. That's it, work. And when I showed up here, there was this thing called the Alberta Advantage, which was simply work hard and you'll get rewarded. And that helped me for decades. I mean, my life was good, able to raise a family and afford a small house and whatnot. And something changed dramatically in the mid, 2012, 13, 14. And so for me, it was a game changer, was my time working for TransCanada when we're trying to build East. Oh, no.
Oh, we're good now.
That's not the building. No, that's our
Yeah.
phone.
There's a child missing. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So everybody
they're
pay
found.
attention to that one if you're in the area. It must be Calgary.
As long as it's legit, that's
Yes.
legit.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
again.
Then again, no coincidences, right?
There's no coincidences.
Even with
I'm
our
like,
door going back and forth and
well,
squeaking.
were you at the main event, the big event at the Big
Yes,
Four
yeah,
building?
Big Four. I saw you there, and someone pulled the fire alarm.
Somebody pulled the fire alarm,
Yeah.
right? And then that was cool because people pulled the fire alarm, and I think was it Eva Chibyuk or somebody, maybe Mitch, whoever was on stage, didn't skip a beat, kept on talking.
Yeah,
Raph.
good.
And nobody
Raph was on
left,
stage,
right?
yeah.
Nobody left.
Yeah.
I remember helping Andrew. What's Andrew's website? Andrew Bocage. What's his handle on X? Andrew's the guy who went and put the Alberta flag on Adams Island.
Ozzy Island.
Yeah. Anyways, good job for doing that, Andrew. By the way,
And the second time too, because someone tore it down.
it's gone now again. It's gone. Like that's so.
Well, maybe
actually,
they wanted it on their property.
Actually, we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, that night, Andrew, we helped Andrew because while the fire alarm was going on, he lost one of his kids. He couldn't find a kid. And that's for any parent who has a young child,
Yeah.
that's a moment of panic, right? Let's talk about that, actually. Let's talk about, so Andrew goes to Adams Island. And Adams Island, for people who don't know, is when you're driving from Alberta to Banff, you go by Lac des Arts, by just before Canmore, and you'll see that cement plant, and there's a big lake, and on the lake there's a little island, and a lot of times on the little island there'd be different flags. I've seen the Canadian flags, I've seen an Acadian flag, and Andrew went out there and put an Alberta flag, and then some group subsequent to that went and tore down his flag and put a Canadian flag. Then Andrew went back, and Andrew did the right thing. He's like, because when he went the first time, he didn't take down anybody else's flag.
Right.
He just put up an Alberta flag. When he went the second time, he left the Canadian flag, and then he put up his own. And now the Alberta one is gone again. And we're seeing that. Somebody asked me this regarding the signs right now. Are we starting to, is it starting to feel like a campaign? And my answer was yes. Because we are seeing, but we're seeing signs. So we're seeing our signs go up, but we're seeing the other side go up. But you broke a story yesterday, or you reported a story. What happened in Red Deer?
So in Red Deer at Cool Shit, which is a fantastic place because we have a lot of that
What
there.
do they do there?
It's everything, but
Are
there's
they
a
an
lot.
IT place or computer store, or are they?
Well, you can buy electronics there, garden equipment, or coveralls. It's basically a garage sale, pawn shop, plus retail, all in one.
Okay.
It's really cool stuff. You'll probably enjoy it because you walk around
with
like,
the
I want one
wealth
of those.
of Alberta gear as well.
But he does
so
have
he's
a lot of
business. He's a private business who's put his neck out by selling Alberta flags. Sad that becomes an issue.
Yep. So what happened there was when we arrived, because we were doing a pop-up for our sign giveaway there, he's a great guy, Rob. I called him up, said, hey, we'd like to use your parking lot, can we? He's like, absolutely. Because it's best to have permission from a private owner to do that, because even pop-ups are trouble, like you saw with us in Edmonton with the police. But anyways, as soon as we get there, he's like, they broke my windows this morning.
No.
And spray painted Trader on a sign. At least it spelled it right, just to be clear. But yeah, they did just, and I asked him, how are you going to cover this? Insurance going to cover this? It was like $2,000 deductible. It's best to just cover it himself. So it's a financial loss for him. But that's not even the first time we've seen something like that. Corey Morgan signs spray painted. We saw somebody take a sign down on video. We even had Mitch, as far as the petition period, with that bullet incident in his shop.
I had a crazy lady. It wasn't me. It was across the street. So I had two pop-ups, and then I actually had several incidents, right? But the one was a lady got upset. She put the camera,
Oh, I remember that one with the minivan.
I'll give my friend's name. It's Sean, right? So Sean, we had all been instructed. You take out your phone. Once you take out your phone, a lot of crazies calm down, right? So Sean took out his phone. She grabbed his phone and she threw it in the ditch. Funny thing, kudos to iPhone. I don't know what he had, an iPhone 14 or whatever. It kept on recording. Even underwater, you could hear the muffled sound. Then he brought it up, and she went around and she knocked down all our flags.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And I'm like,
and then she blocked her license plate at the end.
Yeah,
right?
you're so upset that you're offended by the flag of this province.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm not, I mean, yes, I've given up on Canada, but I'm not offended by the flag of Canada.
Not at all.
It's your
Not at
And if
all.
we ever become our own country, it's still your flag. I'm not going to be offended. But yeah, it's crazy that flags are used that way.
The justification that they have for vandalism and theft is not acceptable. That we see people are literally having lawn signs taken off their lawn. Again, they're having their businesses vandalized.
Yeah.
Just because you believe that you are correct doesn't mean it's so.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of illegal activity. And what did the police advise? Well, it works both ways. However, we are not actually going out and stealing Canadian flags, Canadian lawn signs, or anything like that.
And sorry to cut you off, but I was disappointed during the signature collection period that none of the political parties were coming out against that. I wanted Danielle to say, listen, this is like
Condemn it,
right?
Yeah.
Menchie, you should condemn it. You should all condemn it. This is in fact, and you mentioned traitor. I got called a traitor so many times, and I'm like, there's no pure. First of all, it's not treasonous.
No,
it's in our laws. I'm allowed to do this. A province is allowed to separate, and I'm simply exercising a democratic right. Like I'm sitting on the side of the road collecting signatures. And I want to come back to that, but sorry, I interrupted you. You had something you wanted to say.
Well, I just want to kind of build on what Paula was saying there. About 1 every 20 people that come to grab a lawn sign choose not to take a lawn sign because they're worried about their cars being keyed,
right,
and someone attacking them and just putting themselves out there.
Right.
But they just stop by to say, hey, I just want you to know, support what you're doing, keep it up. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Would you like a free lawn sign? No, I'm more worried about my neighbor or someone attacking my car and stuff. And that's sad because it's true.
But it does work, right? I mean, I put up a lawn sign. Yes, I put up a lawn sign because some of us people say you're brave to do it, but some of us need to be brave to encourage others to do it, right? It was fascinating when I was on the side of the road. I know that there were people that were driving and trying, like, don't look.
Yeah, we see those too.
Don't look, right? There's something going on, but don't look. But I know that I reach people regardless because Marty's on the side of the road and some people came by and said, what are you doing? It's like, that's all I needed. Perfect.
Yeah.
If after 20 days you finally stopped and asked what I'm doing, that's awesome.
Well, you're a data guy, so let me give you some data over the last few days because we've been going around sitting on the side of the highways doing this again. For every sign that gets picked
Aren't
up,
we crazy?
a little bit. For every sign that gets picked up, we get about 5 honks, pro honks,
Right.
Yeah.
supportive. For every honk, we get about 10 thumbs up and silent
Explain
ones.
what you're doing. Be very pragmatic. So you're setting up.
I'm breaking up into 3 different groups of support.
Yeah.
The
No,
one-
I mean, what are you doing what are you
Oh, we
physically
just have-
doing?
we have
You're
a lot-
driving somewhere and you have piles of signs and you're handing out signs?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so kind of like the petition period, we were collecting signatures. Now we're handing out the signs.
Right.
And a lot of people will yell, I've signed already. We're like, well, come get your sign.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is there's 3 groups of support out there. The silent ones that won't honk, but they're supportive.
Yep.
And they let you know. Then the ones that are willing to honk, and then the ones that are willing to pull over and put up a sign.
Yep.
So there's a lot more support out there than people
Yes.
think.
Absolutely.
1/3. It's a rule, right? I mean, 1/3 of the people are totally decided on independence, 1/3 are against it, and there's that middle ground.
We're not seeing that third anymore, though. We for the Rocky Mountain, we had 2 people, 1 thumbs down, and 1 guy that's kind of rode on his bike and says, "Make sure you include everybody." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, we are."
But last week you and I had a chat, right? I told you I was driving up to Grand Cache and I was following the Cowboy Trail. And I had every intention of documenting all the Alberta flags because I've driven the Cowboy Trail, folks, is like Highway 22, right? It sort of parallels the Rockies, and it goes from I think it goes all the way at the Alberta
At least
U.S.
Cochrane,
border, and
it
it
could
goes
be
all the way
further,
up north to Grand Cache, basically. So I was following that, heading up to Grand Cache, and I told Jason, I've been driving it many times, and over time I've noticed the number of flags. That's Alberta Independence Land.
Yeah.
Actually, along there, up in Bonnyville, there's a few big pockets that are really and I was ready to document it, but then all the Alberta flags now across from them are Canadian flags.
Yeah.
I've noticed an increased effort
I have too.
to try to counter the the flags.
And that's democracy.
That's democracy.
And I don't get mad at seeing the Canadian flag at all.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I got to give a shout out. I mean, there's some little towns. I drove through Tomahawk. I don't know. You're close to Tomahawk, right?
Yep.
I go out of. I don't go through Drayton. A lot of times when I'm heading north, I purposely go through Tomahawk because gas is cheaper there, and it is one of the most. They had your signs all over,
Yes,
all
they
over the
did.
place.
Yes, they did.
You know the guy who did that.
You know who did that? Okay, so shout out to Tomahawk.
Yeah. Our buddy Cliff up
Yeah,
at Tomahawk.
yeah, right.
Shout out to Cliff directly. Then, and then
he came in, saw us right away. He took a bunch, and then he came back same day. Said, "I'm already out. But keep going." We gave him a couple.
Oh, is he also a distributor kind of thing?
He knows everybody. Cliff is the unofficial mayor of Tomahawk and area.
Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely getting it out there.
Got permission from the landowners that we could put the signs up, so that was great.
Yeah. No, it's good to see. And I don't know why that Tempo gas station in Tomahawk's always cheaper, but it is what it is. So I get not taking a pause, but just a reminder: this is an Alberta telethon. We're trying to get you guys to. We're trying to raise money. Is what we're doing. We need to raise money for this battle. The battle is coming up quick.
3 months.
3 months, right? October 19th, and so click on pick any one of them. I mean, ideally, you can throw a few bucks to all of them because they're all doing something slightly different.
Remember, 250 on each one of them. You're not on the website.
Yeah. You're focused right now on providing signs for people
and events.
You'll shift in gears at some point. You're still doing events, right?
Oh, yes. We have many events lined up coming up.
What are your events like?
Well, the next one is going to be a tour with the Holmes family.
Okay.
So the sisters and the father and Maxime Bernier.
Yeah.
To give the lessons from Quebec.
Okay.
To let Albertans know why this is so important. It's not a political thing. It's a referendum why it's so important thing.
Yep.
We're doing a one-day family event on April 5th or August 15th with Lindsay Butler for music. It's a thank you and appreciation to canvassers and
Lindsay,
campaigners.
who's the president of the...
No, Lizzie Butler. You're thinking of maybe Sherry, her mom.
Okay.
Yeah, but Lindsay is a country music folk singer.
Okay.
Fantastic. But this is an appreciation to all the volunteers, campaigners, and canvassers. So please bring your family to that one.
Yeah.
We're doing Bruce Party. He's going to come out again and talk more about his stuff. Dennis Kalma, Matt Rowley.
And as an example, like when you bring out somebody, I'm sure it'll, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure most people volunteer their time. Bruce probably doesn't charge you a speaker's fee per se, but I'm sure you try and extend something. I mean, it's not cheap for Bruce to fly and this. I mean, you did it to me, right? I'll speak personally. I didn't charge a speaking fee to go speak.
Nor do we pay anybody.
But if you can throw a few bucks because I got to pay for gas, that's one of the things that the TPAs are for.
The accommodations and hospitality
and
the venue, all of that stuff is covered by the donations.
Yeah.
And when someone like Bruce comes into Alberta from Ontario, he gives a different perspective.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, here's why Alberta should do it. You're going to save Canada.
Now, on that topic, I mean, some people volunteer an incredible amount of time. Incredible.
Oh, my
like,
goodness.
Well, let's do the math. At $25 an hour, 200 hours, 50 grand. You donated in your time.
No, it's not that much.
Do it.
It was enough to qualify for EI in most provinces. Yeah.
25 an hour would be 50 grand. And that was you and Karen.
Yeah. No.
That's a generous amount of time.
And I'm retired, but some people are doing this while they're still like Mitch Sylvester, who was here in the first hour.
I'm in his chair, I think.
The man is a machine, right? Like I couldn't keep up with him. I mean, he was, how many miles does he put on?
120,000 kilometers
in
his new truck
in just over a year or something like that. So he's
I got that update in the outside when I saw him.
Yeah. And Miss Sylvester, everybody. I mean, there's so many people, Jeff Rath and Dennis Modry. A lot of people have put in a lot of effort. You guys, I have.
Kathy Flett has put a lot on.
Chris at the Whistle Stop.
Chris
I mean,
Scott,
it's years of doing this, right? And it takes years off your life at some point.
Corey Morgan.
I was never gray like this.
Corey Morgan drives a lot too, and I had more hair at the beginning.
Yeah. Now, actually, sort of on that topic of people stepping up. What's your thoughts on there's two schools of thought. There's a lot of people that are asking for leaders. And I'm not one of them. I'm still of the opinion that this is better as a grassroots movement without a leader. But what's your thoughts on that?
I agree with that, Marty, 100%.
Yeah.
Each time that there was an attempt to have like some sort of election, pick a leader, let's get behind one, my first instinct was no, because you're leaving one target. And as we saw, they do go after with lawfare, with
Yep.
hit pieces.
Yep.
And if let's just say hypothetically, if Mitch Sylvester was the leader, they would attack him even harder. Or if Jeff Rath was the leader,
Isn't it interesting? I mean, I saw that last week. Right, I saw like Jeff Rath. It made the news because one of the judges froze his assets or something like that. It's a civil case, right? It's he actually represents a party that won. He won a settlement for a party, and he had negotiated a fee. And
the First Nations group over 53 million he successfully got for them.
And so now, anyways, normally that kind of little that wouldn't be news normally. That happens in civil litigation all the time, but because it's Jeff Rath, it's big news.
Yeah.
And it gets blown out. And when I first saw that, that's all I thought. It's like, well, it's Jeff's turn. It's just Jeff's turn. I mean, I took a turn at it. You took a bit of a turn, but I took a turn. I mean, I had associated my name with the
Centurion Project.
Centurion
and they
Project.
came after both of us for that.
Yeah. And I was like, ooh, you know, and
that was just a taste of what Mitch and the rest go through.
Yeah, just a taste, and I don't wish it on anyone. I mean, it's intimidating. Like I'll repeat what happened that day. I mean, I'm on stage, we're on stage, and all of a sudden we hear that there's police cars and there's 8 police cruisers outside coming to quote serve a cease and desist papers to David Parker,
which had nothing to do with the event itself, but what he was doing behind the scenes.
And then it was served by Elections Alberta. And so you're telling me that somebody at Elections Alberta called the police chief in Calgary and said, hey, I got to go serve papers. I need 8 cruisers. And the police chief said, oh, sure. They don't do that for anyone.
No.
Well, you remember when the Q&A happened and someone asked from the audience, why are the police here? And my answer was, I don't know, but I know what the headlines are tomorrow.
Yeah.
I guarantee you what they're going to run with this tomorrow. And they did.
Yeah. No, it's no different than when the RCMP sent 2 officers to Medicine Hat to go bring Tamara Litch on the warrant.
That's right.
Yeah.
She would have walked in voluntarily anyways, right?
On Canada Day too, right? She spent the weekend.
There are
Canada
definitely some double standards, and there are definitely attempts and efforts to make some groups feel a lot more pressure. So you're right. Okay, so back to that. We're on the same page.
And just keep an eye on September.
Yeah.
There'll be September surprises right before the October. September, that's when they're going to hit us
Nothing's
hard.
a coincidence. When an event happens, when there's a press release, when there's a story that breaks, you know this. I mean, stories that break on Friday are different than stories that break on Mondays. So yeah, and so whose turn is next?
I don't know. It could be us for all I know.
I mean, they love picking on Jeff.
Yeah.
Mitch gets away with. They're not. I hope they don't go after Keith and Tanya, but I think they could be.
I think they're certainly going to be targeting them for sure. Maybe I don't know about anything bad for Keith, but you don't have to do anything bad. They can frame it and twist it in such a way.
Yeah.
And hey, he's been trying to destroy Canada since the convoy. And maybe they'll drum up some old stuff from there. But Keith and Tanya are pretty clean. Most of us are pretty clean. In fact, there's even internally, we're kind
totally clean. We're average. Like,
well, we're trying to.
I mean, I know these people. Like, you know.
Even
Chris Scott, they go after Chris Scott.
Even internally, like if anybody has anything that's remotely possibly a headline, fix it, clean it, or arm's length. Okay. But everybody else that's up front right now, I don't even have speeding tickets.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, interesting time, sort of a neat segue. They went after Paul's Pizza for a while.
You did.
And so perfect segue. There's a party tonight at
be
Paul's
there.
Pizza, right? So after this, the last segment of the telethon will be broadcast from Paul's Pizza in Airdrie. And we were worried that we were going to host a little party there on a Saturday, but Paul said, oh no, apparently Saturdays are dead in Airdrie in the middle of summer because everybody's out rodeoing.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. So tonight the party's at Paul's Pizza, right? So and we'll be there. Come for selfies and stuff like that. Come say hi. Come support Paul too. I mean, he's not a TPA, but why is he taking the heat? What was his? What started the heat? With
I think
him?
he stood up against the issue with immigration and some of the troubles there.
Yeah.
And just saying, I don't think mass migration and immigration is a good idea. I think it should be merit based. Just taking that position.
Do they know what he looks like? Do they know?
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't matter.
So it's not Paul's Pizza. It's Farouk, but he's an immigrant.
Yeah.
This is critical of the immigration system.
But that's what I saw them going after.
Yeah.
Was some of his common sense comments around that subject. Just mention it, they call you a racist and supremacist. So.
And that's another thing, right? We talked about the cost of events. the cost is one part, but the other thing, how many events have you been canceled out of because the place where you're trying to hold the event said no thanks?
Yeah, there's 3 levels of those. There's those that won't book you at all.
Yeah.
Now the city of Edmonton sent us an email saying, don't bother. We're not going to have any of your events anywhere in the city. It's city facilities. We have those that book us, but then cancel us. And then we have those that cancel like the day of.
Which is really nasty.
Which is tough. Yeah, which is tough. But it does happen. Okay, it does happen.
Yeah.
And Paula's fantastic at getting on a phone and finding an alternate venue, and we move it quickly.
Yeah.
It does hit the attendance for sure.
Yeah.
Because people show up to the other one, they didn't get the message. But it happens everywhere.
People were doing that to Paul's, right? They're calling Paul's Pizza and ordering like 15 pizzas. He got wise to that pretty quick. I think every pizza shop's wise to that.
Yeah. And by the way, what they don't understand is the Streisand effect. When they do that, we actually hear about Paul's Pizza and we support it more. It's just like the Tabor billboards.
The town of Tabor saying no billboards. Okay.
Oh, well, do you know how much free advertising you got?
Now?
What's that?
It's Cochrane now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Cochrane, for the take your sign down bylaw.
Sent a letter, bylaw officer sent sort
Land
of a
use
warning to
bylaw,
somebody who had I think it was one of Corey's signs on the fence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think that guy's going to paint the sign on his
That
fence.
would be wonderful.
Fantastic.
You push us too hard, and that's what we do, right? I mean, I was on let's go. It's a weird shift, but I was upset when I first heard that the petition wasn't going to be counted.
Right. Yeah.
And before that came out, I was worried about the ruling. And I said, if the judge says this is invalid and I have to stop collecting signatures, that's when I would have said, well, then I'll be in contempt of law because I will go sit on the side of the road and I will continue to collect signatures. So there's a time where it's okay to push back and disobey. And I think if a bylaw officer comes and says you can't have a sign on your property, I'll just put a bigger one.
Well, Jeff Bezos,
you'll have to drag me out.
He has way over the limit for his hedges. He just pays the fine.
Yeah, he just pays
the fine. Yeah.
Yep. Doesn't matter. Just
Yeah,
pay the
that's
fine.
true. That's it has nothing to do with this, but I saw that I was standing in line at the customs, coming back with my 2 bottles of booze, and the guy in front of me had like 10, right? And that's what he says, like, I just paid the duty.
Yeah.
I'm like,
of course.
Wait, it's still cheaper.
Yeah, it's a rich man's game sometimes,
Still
right?
cheaper. How are we doing for time? Do I have to start wrapping it up? Okay, I got a producer. I don't know how I wrap this up. Thank you both for coming down.
Well, Marty, it's a pleasure to work with you again.
Where can people find you?
Always.
I mean, we know what's the net. Come by events. Actually, I'll just say this, right? They're ordinary people. We talked about this, right? So if you see Jason and Paula, you see them on the street. If you see me on the street, say hi. Like, don't be shy and come chat. We love chatting. Where are you going next? What's your plan? So we're
going to take an actual week off now. So we'll announce that now. So we planned to take last week off, but we didn't. We took it off from the show, but we're on the road every single day.
Yeah.
We're actually going to stay home, get off the road for a week, and then get back to it because we have that August event. 7 days, 5 stops with Maxine and the Home Sisters.
I think it's okay to take a small break. The referendum's on the 19th. We need to be kind of like Olympic athletes.
We got to mow our lawn.
We're Olympic athletes. We have to peak like right about there. We don't want to peak too early. All right, folks. Boy, this hour went by fast. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Marty.
As part of the series of different interviews I'm doing with third-party advertisers, I'd like to welcome my friend Jason Levine, who is a third-party advertiser. Jason, it's good to have you down here in my basement. Welcome to my home.
John, I love it here. Your community is great. Your home is wonderful, especially that garden in the front with all the signs.
Well, yeah, I've got signs everywhere, and we'll talk about your signs in just a moment. You've actually been in for quite some time. You were a third-party advertiser during the petition campaign, and you're in during this part of it as well. Why'd you get involved?
Well, we were third-party advertisers before it was cool, right? We got involved because we wanted to make sure that we were not going to become a headline at some point by trying to do events. We wanted to make sure we understood the rules for Elections Alberta, especially when you're getting out there having conversations. Where are the lines? Then how to work with them and make sure you don't cross any of them.
You know, there are some very difficult rules to follow, but it does give you some guidelines so you can stay in your lane, correct?
It's nice when everybody plays by the same rules because the better team wins at the end. But it's important to ensure that you understand them, even if you're part of the public, because sometimes they can get themselves into trouble just by trying to help out if they don't understand the rules, like the $1,000 limit for individuals. And we wanted to make sure that we could go beyond the $1,000 in order to get larger events, billboards, and signs.
And we can talk a little bit about that as we're recording this right now. It's a couple of weeks before the telethon, which is on right now. You're kind of cruising around the province, Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary this evening as this is happening, and we're recording today with Bruce Pardy, Dennis Kalma, Matthew Rowley talking about the Constitution. One of the things you're doing, you're going to do more of these events as we move closer to the 19th of October?
100%. We were testing on a new format, a public input format, where we're asking the audience to provide their questions, comments, concerns, even some of their ideas on what a constitution could look like. Because there's many different models out there and people talking about different models. And we don't have an open mic, which is kind of a unique thing where we have everybody writing down on a card. So I'm sitting at the table with all the cards while the gentlemen are answering the questions, and I'm getting ready for the next one. It's a smooth process. We get as many questions in as we can, and people have been loving it.
What's the importance of the Constitution as we move forward, and that people know about that prior to the 19th of October and the referendum?
People want to know, how is this going to work? They understand the problems. I think it's very clear. Even Jason Kenney said we've got a lot of problems with Ottawa. But at this stage, what is going to be the solution to that? What can we be looking forward to? And can I be part of that? And that's why having a Constitution question at this stage with the public is very important. So it allows them to get into the conversation and have a piece of that as well and kind of own it, a little bit of stakeholding, because this is a Constitution for the people, by the people.
You're trying to be visual. A lot of the different TPAs, third-party advertisers, are trying to be visual. You're one of the groups that has signs. I've got one of your signs along with many others in front of my house right now. You're doing billboards. Why is that important?
Because people sometimes are not online watching our stuff, and they're watching other things like CBC. And when you're getting out to the public and seeing your community with a support of something, it'll get your attention. And the billboards around the legislature, I think, is also a good idea, because that's where the lawmakers are. And they'll be driving down these roads all the time, and they're going to be seeing, oh yeah, that vote on October 19th, and these guys are for option 2. There's a lot more people that are getting involved with that and getting behind that too.
I think we forget that I wake up in the morning, you probably wake up in the morning, others wake up in the morning thinking about politics. I mean, God, what a way to start a day. But we think about it all the time, and most people don't. And that's why those visuals are important.
It is too, because it kind of reminds them something big is going on. Maybe they're not paying attention to any news. Maybe they're just in their own bubbles, in their own communities, their own worlds. And just even seeing a glimpse of that, like, wait a minute, what is that? Let's go to livingshow.com and see what that's about. They can check out interviews that we're having, find your show as well. And things like this telethon is super important, because it's going to really put the focus on a whole bunch of people who are working hard right now. I'm so pleased that you're doing this, John.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. A great segue into me talking about the telethon. If you'd like to support Jason and what he's doing, just go to albertatelethon.com and make a donation.
You're on.
We're live now? Okay. Normally, we start a segment when we're in our little basement studio with alrighty then. But since we have Daryl Comic today, we're going to say aloha, everybody. So we're excited to be here today. But the first thing I want to do is remind people our family is all about dialogue. And that also means asking questions and hard questions. And so there's an email that everybody can go to write the spicy questions to Chris Scott for his interview later. So go to the email, letsgoalberta1, the number 1, at gmail.com, and send all of your hard questions there, whether it's regarding, finances or the potential constitution for an Alberta, because I find a lot of people are struggling to think about that. There's this misconception that it's a hard thing to do to separate, and fair enough if you've never done it, like Canada hasn't. But people, even within the last 50 years, there have been minimum 50 countries that have separated. It is not a new phenomenon, especially here in the West. You can even go back to Rome history. They also separated before. Usually people associate the fall of Rome as like their comparison to today's America or even today's Canada. But Rome also had separating states as a sign that the system needs refurbishing. And so people need to start thinking about those things. So send all of your questions to said email. Now, for context about what we wanted to talk about here with Corey and Daryl, Dad?
Yeah, so first off, this is an honor for us to be a part of this. So we
We're
got
all
to
live
put
in
our
studio.
thanks out. And yeah, I mean, we're
Yeah.
used to be in our studio. We're a small channel and growing because as circumstances presented themselves, most people that have watched our channel know that our wake up call was in 2020. And then getting involved ended up being the accountability process that we had to find our way through. And so here we are, you know, just trying to help with the culture war because we believe wholeheartedly, you know, there's nothing on record that attributes that this was a Mark Twain saying, but it's easier to fool someone than to convince someone they've been fooled. And one of the ways to dispel magic tricks that get played on the minds of individuals is by knowledge, there's a biblical verse, Hosea 4:6, I like quoting. It says, for lack of knowledge, my people were destroyed. Because they rejected knowledge, I reject them as priests before my house. The meaning of all of these types of quotes and sayings is that that's on us. That's on us as individuals. So for us to be asked to participate in this is an honor because that's wholeheartedly where the motivation is for our family at this stage of, I guess you want to call it the collective battle, is to bring awareness because our citizens and our fellow Albertans, they mean a lot to us. We all went through things and we have this long context from 2020 to this point. And that is going to be one of the themes of where we would like our segment to be is how we got here, because there's this tension that's arising out there with, you know, you got your Forever Canada camp and your Independence camp. And yet the funny thing is that not even 5 years ago, we were just all Albertans facing unknown circumstances and different protocols that were offered by our government. And it would seem that this is a thread. There's a theme here. And there are those almost acting more conservatively, saying, well, we don't want any type of separation. We would like to stay within, you know, a United Canada. And it's like, all right, well, fair enough. I understand. That's awfully conservative of you. But there are those, though, that find themselves going, we played that game. And this is one of the beauties about having Corey Morgan with us. I've also done like Dr. Michael Wagner's works and books, is that there actually is a long history of Alberta being in this circumstance since 1905. It precedes 1905 in all actuality. We're not going to go down a history lane, but I like bringing in the context of the larger picture and that we're all a part of it. At one point in time before the Americans became Americans, they were British subjects. Well, that's funny. We're British subjects. And so we actually have a lot in common. It's our humanity first and our neighbors. And so we want to promote the TPAs, the third-party advertisers, of which Corey is also one of them. There are 6 that are going to be getting promoted. I know all the previous guests, segments have done this thing. We're going to make mention of them too as we go. I do not have the cheat sheet. I'm not excellent with names, but that mindset goes to my daughters. But anyway, so that's the context, and we're thankful to be here. And let's start with the questions and conversation, because how did we get here, Corey? Why are we here? And I don't mean us as in just the 5 of us sitting in a studio.
Well, that'll fill the hour if we really want to get that's a big question.
Okay, currently then with the TPA aspect, that this is because you got a long history.
I do. I guess what I'll point out is a whole new generation of Albertans have realized and come to the conclusion that change within the system is futile. I think so the independence movement was always comprised of people who had come to that conclusion. Aging myself, I was 29 when I started the Alberta Independence Party back in 2000. And that was my conclusion at that time. But people still, I'd call them reluctant independence supporters. They always wanted to cling to one more lifeline, one more bit of hope, one more way to think that they maybe could fix this. And the one that really devastated us as an organization, as we were gaining a bunch of steam and getting a lot of attention at that time with the Chrétien government and things happening, was Stephen Harper came out with the Alberta Agenda. And Bosencool, who now is one of the most hardcore federalists apparently against us and things like that, saying we don't need to go that route. We can fix everything. We can get a pension plan. We can get a police force. We can collect our own taxes. We can do our own EI. 26 years later, and he had a majority government. Nothing, not a single one of the things in the Alberta Agenda has been accomplished. And we currently have a provincial government that's reticent in bringing those in as well. I mean, they talk and talk and talk and talk, and nothing changes. And I've been very supportive of our provincial government in a lot of ways. They've done a lot of good things. It's been one of the better governments we've had in a long time. But when it comes to Ottawa, talk, 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 talk. You're never going to talk a pipeline into the ground. You're never going to talk my pension better. You're never going to talk my personal rights back into being after we've had our bank accounts seized. We've been locked down. So a lot has changed. I believe COVID contributed to this as well. That was a big wake-up call for a lot of people who thought the government's benign. The government would never do such things to us. Our freedoms are protected. They're safe. Realize, no, actually, we're just one more sneeze away from being locked down again because nothing has changed. And it's come to a head with people that final hope they were hanging on to. Okay, Canada prefers Liberals. They'll give us Liberals for 8-10 years at a time, but they'll give us a breather with 4 years of a Conservative government now and then, so we could, have somebody who's less bad to us for a little while in office. And when it came that close, but all they had to do was slap a new coat of paint on another Liberal, throw them in the front, and not only were they put back in, but with a stronger mandate than they had before. That's when I think a tipping point of Albertans realized that's enough. It's enough. The system doesn't work.
Or it's working exactly as it was designed.
Well, it wasn't, though. I hear that all the time, and I don't believe it. I believe it's out of date. I believe it was built by a centralized government, again, 100 and some years ago, who were looking from the perspective that this is 4% of the population. Thus, you build a system to treat it as if it's 4%, but they didn't build in or think about the growth that would come later. I mean, the abuse of the system by those who control it, yeah, it's working exactly how they would like. I just don't feel it was ever designed necessarily. I do believe the founders thought they were building something good, but it's the problem with a system 100 and some years ago. How many things from 100 and some years ago were useful today? We have to change this thing. We have to adapt it. Meech Lake and Charlottetown were the last two big, these were prior to you guys' time, but these were the last two big pushes to try and change it. And they didn't even come close. And
I was younger than they are now in that scenario.
So it's realizing you've got two choices. Accept this status quo and realize that we're just going to have our rights degraded. We're going to be a second-class province within a larger federation, or pursue independence, which is really the only one and only way we can see now to shatter and break out of this thing. Looking at the amount of conversation, looking at this growing support, looking at this organization, more people have come to that conclusion than ever have before. So it's been an incredible year.
I mean, a classic example is the telethon in and of itself. The fact that it's manifesting as it is now, with as many hosts that it's appearing, with the viewers that are watching and everybody that's in on it. All of the TPAs we have 7 on the list here, but there's even Albertans for Freedom. They're coming out, and those are good people. There's so many more that aren't on this list, which is, just a testament to the culture that Alberta's trying to continue for fostering, which is all what we're about.
Well, and we did an interview recently because we were having a debate with people that are sharing the sentiments that you're talking about, which is the feeling like if we just hold on a little bit, right, then we could get somewhere. And it was with a lovely lady on our CA board named Judy, and then it was with one of the TPAs, Angela Tabak from the Alberta Women's Independence Network. Yeah, thank you, Alberta Women's Independence Network. I'm like, that's the longest TPA name.
That's a fantastic group.
It's very true. But when she was talking, Judy, she was mentioning that it's like, well, I mean, in the past, it was relatively good enough to ignore, as in getting involved in government was just something that not a lot of people were paying attention to because they thought that life was okay, right? But it was more of, well, yeah, you're surviving, but you're not necessarily thriving. And then she made the comment that, are we really going to try and separate on the auspices of just bad 11 years of Liberal government?
Since Pierre Trudeau, I think, was her timeline. It's only been bad since Pierre.
I instantly was thinking of you and all of your historical context, going like, oh, honey, it's far more longer than just 11 years of Liberal government.
No, it's much deeper, and it's cyclical. I mean, I think something that drove home to a lot of people, those of us old enough to remember the first Trudeau, we had to go through another one. Does this country ever learn? Is it going to change? And no, it doesn't.
Yeah, the bruised and battered wife syndrome.
Yeah, I guess we keep going back, but it looks different this time. I'm just going to do a quick announcement. This was passed on to me. Keith Wilson just announced they've raised $25,000 today so far.
Awesome.
Let Alberta Decide is the name of their TPA. And I checked about 2 hours ago with ours. We'd raised $5,200 already a couple hours ago. This telethon, and people are really responding all over. I mean, Keith's obviously going to blow me out of the water, but it's great. We're all winning.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, each TPA has a max that they can receive. Is that correct?
607,000.
Yes, and so
we still got lots of room. So
exactly. I know that Keith is very popular, and so is Tanya. I mean, what an attractive woman. Who wouldn't want to give her money? But I digress. I mean, definitely try and spread the love once you can. That way, people can divide and conquer. The more signs, if the more houses that look like John Bolton's with 7 signs, the better.
Something I also just wanted to add to play to the context, because there's so many people that are still on the fence, and that was alluding to the fact that even if we went through past grievances before, like maybe with the COVID-19 situation, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily feeling like Alberta independence is the way to solve that problem, right? Like trying to figure out how to fix the system using kind of the battlefield that they set up for you, right? But when we were having that discussion on our podcast with Angela and Judy, it was one of the things mentioned was, okay, well, why can't we, plead to the other provinces? Because all of the bills that are coming forward, every single province is going to be facing these censorship laws, and it's not just going to be Alberta and et cetera. And I'm like, for sure, like there are laws that are going to make every single person in Canada a victim to a terrible, terrible system, tyranny, essentially. But coming at it from a young perspective, since Maddie and I are kind of a bit of the younger demographic in this movement, I was like, timeline though is the rate at which these bills are coming forward, and where we've seen see historically where Mark Carney and now his majority government have come from, and just all of the different third groups that he's intertwined with, Chatham House, Bilderberg Group, etc., right? And people not looking, either reading his material, like his book Values, or looking at the different historical policies that have come out of these groups, I think is just a huge ignorant bubble that they are not willing to explore, unfortunately. But I was like trying to convince like 50% of all provinces to try and change and open the Constitution in any way. I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be having to bear most of the brunt of what's coming down because I live longer. So I was like, I think time-wise, I'm like, can we speed things up, please?
Just to correct, too, you would need to convince 70% of the provinces with 50% of the population.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen. There's just no way. Quebec isn't going to agree, and you're already getting close in the population numbers. With Senate reform, when 80% of our Senate is on the other side of Manitoba, there's no way those provinces are going to agree to that change. The problem is the status quo serves them, and they don't have an incentive to change it constitutionally. We might get some legislative wins. Things you're talking about, these authoritarian type actions bills coming out of the prime minister right now, but that doesn't change the system. And I mean, we aren't protected until the system changes. So
Agreed.
we should talk to the other provinces. I mean, there's no sense suffering, and we still want to be as pragmatic as possible and get as good a policy as we can in the meantime. But we have to realize that this is just going to be an unending cycle of battling against these authoritarians until we bring in a system that protects us.
And Rand's right. Like, tell me the incentive, I'll tell you the outcome.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah, that's actually one question that on the interview that we did with the independence debate with the two ladies, I was asking about the question, all those signs across Calgary, those ones conveniently don't get vandalized. The ones that stay in Canada, no to the 9. We were talking about the referendum, and Judy said, those other points, she's not as radical as some of the Forever Canadian group that like to say no to all of them, because apparently all of the other questions imply independence that you leave, which is ridiculous. But one of my questions is, because she said, let's just focus on the other referendum questions rather than, the potentially separating one, which isn't even a separation question, but people are still looking at it with the trepidation of its implications. And so a question that I have for you is, with talking about reform and the system, because we're a very solution-oriented family and you're a very solution-oriented guy. That's why you've tried so many things in the past and you're like, okay, I'm narrowing it down. But the referendum questions, some of the stuff that you alluded to with the firewall letters being, Senate reform, and then the police force, the taxes,
Alberta pension plan.
the Alberta pension plan. The thing is that I'm struggling with is that even though Judy likes some of the other questions, I think 7 out of the 9 of them are just on immigration. And so why is that a mediocre solution, just to assume that those 9 other questions will get Alberta somewhere?
The bottom line is most of those things, when they're talking about those questions, require constitutional reform. So, and you're not going to get it. How many times have we, as a country, got to realize that and look at it? So it's giving that false hope. It's similar to the Alberta agenda that was put out. It's giving those people that out again. Say, well, we could just do this and this and this. For example, in a federation, it's understood like Quebec has a bigger say in who can immigrate and who can't when they're determining people coming into Quebec. But it still can't stop people once they've landed in Quebec, Alberta or Ontario. Once you're in the federation, a migrant can go to any province they please and set up shop. There's nothing a province can do. It wouldn't be a proper federation if you could set up borders like that.
Right.
Which is why I want to see a federation. If
Right.
we want to control if we want to control immigration, there's only one way. We need to be our own nation. Other than that, immigration will be a federally managed aspect, because it must be in a federation. And we see that they use that again, not for our benefit or our good. I mean, immigration's been very good to us in a lot of ways. Alberta was built on immigration. All the statements about it, and they're true. And there's people who come from all corners of the planet, bring fantastic skills and innovation and business, whether it's from India or England or Sweden or South Africa. But mass immigration is the problem, uncontrolled immigration. And nothing in those questions in that first part of the referendum are going to change that. We can just keep putting, it's similar to the equalization question that Jason came. Very nice. We can all vote one, but guess what? The only way to change it, change it. Some of the stopgap things I do like that are put out from the provincial government, talking about reducing some of the services, that are available to people if they haven't gotten full citizenship or permanent residency and things like that. That helps address some of the temporary foreign worker abuse we've had, or student visa abuse. But it's still, these are Band-Aids. The mass migration is the problem. And I love to see solutions, but I'm not seeing solutions, seeing tweaks on a bigger problem. The only reason we're seeing the federal government scaling back on the mass immigration right now is just because they finally hit the tipping point. They couldn't deny the damage that was being caused as we had a housing crisis, healthcare systems being overloaded, cultural issues with some crime waves. I mean, come on, let's face it. Let's look at every big shooting, big event, big things that are happening all over, the extortion gangs, the grooming gangs. There are always people from somewhere else with a different cultural norm that's coming in. And you can only absorb so much before it becomes more problematic. Got to tap the brakes seriously on it. And again, it's always going to be in the hands of Ottawa as long as we're here. People wondering why the immigration was cranked for getting a bit geeky and so on, but it was just an economic thing, really. People read more into it than was there. But Trudeau likes to brag in his administration that we never really went into recession that much while they were in. But how did you avoid that? Well, if you crank in mass immigration, your GDP actually stays pretty good. It adds to the GDP. Right. But the GDP per capita is
that's a false GDP number anyway.
GDP
is actually supposed to be what a country produces, like physical production.
Well, and that's a separate, I understand.
Not being doctor on the books by a bunch of handouts and inflating numbers. That's a convoluting of GDP.
But as a general measure, anyways, the GDP per capita aspect, whereas when Trudeau came in, it was 51,000 in Canada. It was 55,000 in the United States, and these are in American dollars. That doesn't mean every person getting that much. That's just that measure, and an imperfect measure, as he said, but it is a bit of a baseline. Now we're sitting at 55,000 per capita in Canada, 90,000 in the United States. This is our closest cultural and trade and linguistic partner, like similar resources. Our GDP per capita should have been rising just the same way theirs was over these years, and it's not. We're all getting collectively poorer. People aren't recognizing. The tool to do that, though, was mass immigration to try and pad those numbers to make it look better than it was. And now we're really paying a price for it. But there's nothing to stop the next government from the same thing. That's what I just keep getting at. Until you change the system.
What if we just get a conservative in?
Well, then you might get somebody who's less bad for a few
less bad, exactly.
I've always felt that strategy was kind of like that. There was an experiment that was done on rats where they put them in a vat and they got to swim for 15 minutes and then they would drown. But before the drowning time on the second batch of rats, you pulled a rat out, saved it, dried it off, gave it a little bit of food, then put it back in. And that same rat gave you 600% more time worth of swimming because it had hope of being rescued.
And it's a good analogy.
That's conservative
experiment. And I mean, again, there's a lot of great members of parliament and people within the party who work hard and mean well. But the reality, and that's just math, and that's what I put in my book, that Sovereigntist Handbook, in just explaining to people, if they want to win, they must cater to Ontario and Quebec. It's not personal, it's math. You're never going to win. And those provinces have different interests than ours. In fact, they're usually in conflict with ours, which means the Conservative Party will be in conflict with us. The most hardcore independent supporters aren't created when Liberals screw us. We expect them to when Conservatives do it. And that's when people realize we aren't winning. When Brian Mulroney gave the CF-18 contract to Quebec, when Manitoba had a far superior standing. But why? Because we needed votes in Quebec. Code. Don't worry, they'll throw you under the bus in a heartbeat. When Mulroney dragged his butt in getting rid of the National Energy Program until oil prices collapsed and suddenly the country was now expected to buy our oil at a higher price to help us out, you know what, we don't need the program anymore, and he screwed the West. These things keep happening. We have to understand that. And, you know, Polyev, I think he'll do fewer bad things if he ever gets in than Trudeau or Carney did. Will he change anything? Absolutely. Not a chance.
Yeah, I think that's. I know John Bolton said keep this positive, and so I'm going to try and keep this positive.
I can redirect it after. Go ahead. Take your avenue.
If people think this is a negative thing, the thing that maybe people should understand about my family's mode of attention, we don't bring up the system or the history in order to say, oh, look at how bad things are. It's more so when you're looking at solutions, because Corey, you alluded to well-intentioned people. And I think that's even a lot of the Judy. Judy is, oh, she's a fantabulous woman. She's really well-intentioned. And so, but solutions, like even just talking about, I can see you have the Value of Freedom document from the APP on here. And our family went over that whole document, did a series to help people start thinking, because that's the scary thing. For a lot of people right now is the solutions. You have all these good intentions and people that want Canada to succeed. And they see that there's not actually that big of a divide, like Macy alluded to. The bills that are coming out and all of the bad policies that are happening to us here in Alberta, it's happening across all of Canada. And so, and from my perspective, those other provinces, they suffer a lot as well because they are capping themselves from prosperity by trying to reach those equalization payments. I mean, people don't even know in Quebec, they are capping some of their energy prices just so they can continue, but they would easily be able to cover their own. They don't need to cap.
And that's some of the positive, like the positive end, and people are painting it as a negative, and we got to remember to keep pointing out that that's a positive. The independence is the positive.
Yes.
It is getting off of the hamster wheel. It's moving on.
Mhm.
And it's not motivated by wanting to hurt the rest of the country.
No.
My issue, again, isn't the rest of the country. It's the system. The people of Canada are fantastic. The history of Canada has been very, very good to me. I got to grow up in a relatively peaceful, prosperous place, but now my job is to protect it and make sure it's still like that for the next generation. I believe independence, now there's a big caveat, would actually be a catalyst that would help the rest of the country, because then that would shatter them out of this system too and make them reform things, and they would become better, because we should all be incredibly prosperous with the amount of resources we got.
Yep.
But the big caveat is that's some of the discussions we got to have with the value of freedom and perhaps with Keith Wilson's white papers and so on. We got to make sure we build a better system than we left. We have to be careful. I mean, we're humans. If we broke out and then went right back into a system similar to what we just left, then we don't deserve it.
No, exactly.
So we've got to have those discussions.
Yeah, morally unfit for purpose then, if that's the case.
Well, then also, like a lot of people, when we talk about the independence movement, they think this is very utopic, as in you guys are almost painting it like rose-colored glasses, everything's going to be fixed and everything's going to be solved. And that was one of the remarks that encounters that we did receive. And from a young perspective, it looks like almost like naive save the world syndrome, right? Where it's like, well, this is gonna get it solved. But I was like, at the very least, the mistakes that we will come across, because that's reality, we're going to make some in the pursuit of trying to become our own country, are ours. Like we made them, as in a lot of what it is that we are dealing with today are downstream of choices that I know me and Maddie didn't pick that. And so I'm like, I would rather be making my own mistakes, but also then consequently I have the risk of making my own success. And I'm like, well, that's what I would like to have the choice in being able to do, because right now, as you're alluding to, we don't have that choice to even thrive.
Yeah, I'm forgetting the author of the book, but in Last of the Mohicans, one of the characters' lines is, I would rather make the gravest of mistakes than surrender my own judgment.
Well, there you go. And we've got such an opportunity, if we began a new nation, though, to be able to look at all the models around the world and pick and choose and perhaps build something superior, you know, the most modern and freedom-oriented sort of system ever been built for that time, and maybe another country will surpass us and keep competing with better systems.
Mhm.
I mean, people are going under the assumption that our constitution is perfect. It is. I mean, if you're saying that we should just accept it and take what you will, that means there's no point pursuing change within it. And we got to break out of that thing for the sake of everybody.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I love about all these different TPAs, especially the variety of them, because even Kathy and Angela with the Alberta Women's Independence Network, right now they're doing different series on some of the bills. And then your education, because you have personal experience also with all of these different independence movements over the time of Alberta's history. Everybody's got different things that they're bringing in, even Keith Wilson, Tanya, looking at those white papers. The solutions people, when we talk about the systems and the potential future, people that haven't looked into it, they associate it with a negative because it's unknown. And people are really scared of what they don't know. Hence, the devil I know versus the devil I don't. But a line that me and Macy have continually gone to was said by Cynthia Chung, who is a Canadian historian we absolutely love. And she said, how do you know it's a devil if you don't know it? There's nothing saying that it is. And so all of these documents and all of the work that these TPAs are doing is they're bringing to light their priorities and what they want to fix in the world. And it's a vast variety, which is why you should donate to all of them as much as you can. But that's the sort of thinking that they are spreading. That's the point of giving them the money and the donations. So it's not just the signs, but it's the ways that they do it. And then when they go across and give town halls, they're not all talking about the same thing. And those are the system changes that everybody needs to start just recognizing is it is supposed to be in your hands. Every country that, for the most part, we know that there's infiltration, which we talk about on our channel, which we also have to be aware of, but to pay attention to those things in order to even think about what could you do if it was in your hands. And a lot of people don't know because there's a lot of gaps. But then even looking to people like you reading your books, donating to people that are putting in the effort to write the papers and do potential constitutions. It's like we're not alone in this. And sometimes people think that they have to figure it all out. But there's a lot of people and a lot of TPAs that know it needs to happen. And so you just reach out, and that's the community we're building. Our whole channel and why we love people like Corey, why we love people like Daryl's, because it's a culture that's being built here. And that is the real foundation of any new country is the citizenry.
And
And
Thomas Paine did the common sense that went around through the Americas, and a lot of that was to just bring about the actual awareness necessary for an informed consensual decision about how they felt like they needed to stand up.
We need smart, honest discussion. Something you mentioned
Yes.
earlier, which is true. And some
Agreed.
people are a little guilty of it, of promoting a utopia. Look, this
Mhm.
isn't going to be
True.
easy. There's going to be hurdles. There's going to be a difficulty in transition. I mean, let's assume in a year or two, there was an actual binding vote and a strong majority of Albertans voted to go. I mean, we're a ways from there yet. We got to be honest about that.
Sure.
And the other part is there's going to be some disruption. The dollar is going to go down.
Gonna.
There will be some businesses leaving. There will be capital, held until there's stability and things happen. There's going to be battles within the movement itself over which model they want to see in a new province. We've got a lot of those things we got to be honest about. I think people's BS detectors go off if you say we just vote yes and everything becomes perfect. I think that's part of why the first pension thing out of the provincial government sort of flatlined with Albertans, because the LifeWorks report took such a overwhelmingly optimistic view and interpretation of it on how much Alberta would be entitled to, that not only did the rest of Canada say you're not getting away with 60% of the principal, but a lot of Albertans were just saying, hey, you're really kind of shooting past the target here. I understand the interpreter saying, can't oversell. We got to be realistic about what we're putting out there too.
Sure.
It can push people the other way. I mean, when somebody comes and offers you paradise on the doorstep, more often than not, they're full of crap.
That sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
Usually being it's too good to be true. I mean, we're liking it also to take a look at this honestly. Like say that you're a recovering alcoholic. It's like there are many people that have found their way through that. My dad was one of them.
I'm one of them.
So the thing is like you have to have a certain honesty even on where you are on the map. I mean, that's like this whole journey for me and my family started with me apologizing to my clan, just going, I was pretty savvy, consider myself to be a relatively streetwise guy. And I did not understand the land, of the lay of the land that I was on the map. And it was from that place that now here we are all these years later and in this position and making friends all over, not just Alberta, but like now we've got some international audience as well. And it's like, this is coming from the ring of truth. It's a frequency. Tell the truth as best you can, or at least the best of your knowledge. And if all of a sudden we like to change our axioms, if somewhere along the way, people that are on another side of a particular issue would like to try to convince and edify my mind or that of my family's, then I would like to encourage them, come to the table. Let's have the discussion.
Sure. Sometimes we're wrong.
Right?
It
Oh yeah.
happens a
Well,
lot.
obviously, because that's
Yes.
how it started for us. Was there was a whole lot more wrong than there was right.
Yeah. And it takes, as I said, I'm a friend of Bill's myself, been through part of that, all of that process, and it's been good for me. And a big part of that isn't just pointing out what's wrong with everybody else. It's that harsh self-evaluation of
Yeah.
realizing the truth about yourself. And you can't prove until you've faced those truths and understood those things, like to shield yourself from. And those lessons can be applied in a broader way and in general.
Yeah. Yeah, the ask, seek, knock parable, and lots of people got to remind themselves that that whole thing is 3 sets of action. So
Well, that's why Maddie and I, like, we emphasize culture the most and education in terms of our fight. And so when people come and ask questions about what it is that the specific group is or organization and what it is that they need to be looking at, I'm like, all of it, every single one. Because when we were going down the cultural route and then we started getting into the history, even of, as Dad alluded to, the beginning, our technically our old British subject brothers and sisters, the Americans, right? The people like the Benjamin Franklins, I read his autobiography, and they're the type of people where they had to form communities, and it took decades to actually get the populace like intellectually thinking about these concepts of like, what does the freedom mean, even when you ask yourself that, like what does it mean to you exactly? And then they would have to figure out how to form almost like their own uh, groups that we've kind of seen starting to stir in the surface with the Bruce parties and the Matthew rallies, where it's like, okay, so what would a new documentation look like if we were trying to actually physically say what it is that we want, right? And then that had to build an entirely different like networks upon different networks, right? He had a thing that I loved called the Juno Club, and that's actually probably where Juno News gets their name derived from, where he and a group of his intellectual friends and such would try and discuss these ideas, like almost like in the Value of Freedom document. And then afterwards, those friends started to create their own because they were like, we want more people talking about this, writing their essays, their articles, and be trying to see what it is that we can prompt. And then when the time comes to come together to kind of go like during their time, they had to actually physically fight, right? So it's like, and we may or may not have to do that, I don't know, but they did that, and so they had to form their own coalitions. But it was like everything was so much based upon the community that they were building that it was like the government and the system. It was never about like the rat experiment. You don't have to rely on somebody to come and save you. It was like they figured out a way where they were like, no, we're just gonna stake our claim because we are educated enough to make the republic and therefore keep it, right? So
yeah, like all the founding fathers that wrote the Declaration of Independence, some could argue as far as the minutiae, 27 to 32 grievances. They actually put in evidence. Most people think it's just the beginning. It's like when you actually read the whole thing, they list the grievances and crimes, if you will, that were perpetrated upon them. And I see why Alberta is in no different of a circumstance when you actually look at how we got here. These are an awful lot of motivated people right now. And this leads to a question that I definitely wanted, now that I have you here, was, since you have that past that you've had, and now you're sitting in a very unique circumstance, as we are on the cusp of the largest tidal wave of knowledgeable people in this field per capita in Alberta than you've ever seen. How did we get there, from, in your opinion, and what gives you hope about this go around?
Sure. I mean, two things that were kind of in those two parts of the question. The first part is similar right off the bat. You know, when I talked about perhaps what led up through COVID, through repeated failures, things like that have led to this tipping point, and then finally, you know, hope for change being snatched with a federal election that woke people up. But something that's very different this time that gives me a lot of optimism is the modern communication means we have that
Right.
didn't exist only 20 years ago. when I had the Alberta Independence Party, literally we had volunteers who were licking and stamping envelopes and mailing them to people asking for
Yeah.
donations,
Right.
sending membership cards. Only about 10% of our membership had email. At that point, we can communicate literally to hundreds of thousands of people for pennies, share information. We have these broadcasts. The legacy media aren't the gatekeepers of information anymore. Now, that comes with a risk. We've also got more exposure to BS than we ever have in our life. The
True.
personal responsibility and looking through and who is saying the right things or the wrong things or right things, what their motivations are.
How to think through those things.
Yeah, but we have those opportunities like we never had before. Now I'm optimistic, but at the same time, I see a bit of a void. I don't know. This is uncharted territory, and it makes me excited, but also some trepidation. Part of the problem is mixed messaging. You know, when you have a smaller group with the founding fathers of the United States, but you're spreading that out, and that's with limited print and so on, you could actually control the message a lot more closely. Thankfully, the message for them was predominantly good. Right now, the message is barraging people from 100 directions at once, and it can get diluted, it can get confused. I think, though, we've been kind of watching an evolution of social media. Certain people have sort of just risen organically through. People responded and reacted to what they were offering more than others. And now it's coalescing. I mean, with an event like this, sort of shows a disparate bunch of people. I've never seen a campaign like worked on partisan campaigns all the time. Now with this variety of TPAs, it's a double-edged sword. I think it's great because they're coming from a bunch of different directions. Mine just specializes in signs, flags, visible displays. There's much more to the movement than that. But I'm kind of saying, well, I'm going to bite off this corner and take care of it. And Keith and Tanya are going to take care of a lot more of the policy-oriented and press releases and leading that. Maybe other ones are going to move more on the organization of the ground game when it gets going, and it allows us to kind of diversify and get that out there as well. If any of these TPAs blows up, happen,
Sure.
you're insulated. It's one of 12 or one of 16. But at the same time, there's disadvantages. You know, you're not necessarily moving in the same direction. You might have others giving different messages. I'm still, for the most part, optimistic with the way we've been working together. It's different than a party environment. In a party environment, you're naturally competitive with each other. You have to be. Eventually, even if you're parties that like each other, you have to be running for the same seat in the same spot at some time or another. That's the point of the party, and you will have to compete. These TPAs aren't competing at all. I mean, we're all, I guess, asking the same pool for people to contribute and help us out, volunteer-wise or monetarily, but still, it's not harming me if another TPA does better than what we're doing. It means that they're filling a void that we didn't fill. So it's good. It's moving towards the right end, and we cannot be at each other's throats. Instead, we're all moving in the same direction. So I'm really pumped about this. And again, I don't know what we're going to see because we've never seen anything quite like that. But it's turning into something all on its own that I never would have predicted 10 years ago, and I'm loving the direction.
I don't know why, but I mean, the way he described it kind of reminded me of when Dad was first talking about becoming a dad. Some of those same like insane excitement, but also like crippling fear.
Yeah.
And I feel like this whole kind of trying to raise a nation, and you could talk about it. I haven't had kids, but it's comparable in my brain to the experience you mom did on raising a kid. It's scary because all of the books on parenting that are written like this is how to be a good parent, they're suggestions, and like there are universal certain things. My family learns a lot about the brain so we can help and manage everybody easier, though it doesn't guarantee success. And that's one thing I learned even reading the Socratic dialogues, was that he would talk about all of these great people. Even Socrates, he had kids, but why aren't they known in history? So just because you have, supposedly a good Canada or a good parent country, because Judy wanted to give credit to some of the systems, and you said earlier, some of the things in the system, they came from good roots. There's some good things in the Magna Carta, and then we did copy some things from the American Declaration. But there's no guarantee that the same quality and virtue gets passed down throughout the generations. And looking at that and looking at how Canada has, what you alluded to earlier, strayed from the thing, the idea of raising this thing into something new as something scary. The positive thing about knowing the brain that we learned Because we were listening to all of the different constitution debates from Dennis, from Matthew Rowley, who was a bit more of a monarchist, and then from Bruce Party. And it was a very overwhelming discussion if you've never thought about these things, because your brain goes, what if, but how? And because all of the problems that we see today, we want to figure out how to manage it. And some people say, well, the solution is not to manage it. And knowing history, we can find examples where not managing it caused problems, managing it caused problems. And so one of the things when people look at different constitutions and solutions for what Alberta could be, the thing is knowing the personal responsibility that you're talking about is because no matter what the system is, we have seen republics fail. We have seen monarchs fail. We have seen democracies fail. So all of these notions about what it makes to be a good parent, what it takes to be a good, we are discovering that it really takes each and every individual, and that's what these TPAs are founded on. They're very grassroots movements. And the reason that we are so enthusiastic about that, we started with federal politics and the PPC, and then we were like, okay, try locally, try and get a bit more in our hands. So then we tried provincial, that did okay. Then we went municipal, that did okay, though you'll find that there's problems amongst all three. And then once we realized the culture and how it doesn't matter really how good intention the system is, if you don't have a good educated populace, people that do their research and talk to one another, if they don't have the time, they have a friend that they continually consult, just like a family would, because the family is supposed to divide and conquer. That is how we actually reach the success, because on paper, it can look as beautiful as it wants, but it's always up to the person that is actually implementing it. And that is one thing that I've learned, even you going through all of the motions that you have with your different movements. It's like some of the parties had great foundations, but why did they fail?
Well, we got to look at the others and learn and look at the better models. I'm not going to look at the morbidly obese person for advice on how to lose weight. I'm not going to look to Syria for how to have good governance and avoid civil wars. But we have those examples, and there's a lot of positive examples we can look to, and that's where I'm seeing an opportunity. But we do have to think about it. So where are things going well? How are they doing? I love Switzerland model as an example. Again, not perfection, but certainly an interesting one for a landlocked country with population in different areas. There are other working models of democracies all over. There's some interesting ones really emerging in Asia, actually, that are doing quite well. Look to the best. We've got a lot of negative models. I mean, it takes critical thinking, though. Yeah, what went wrong there? I mean, not every parent is good. I mean, yeah, often are good intentioned, or some aren't good. It's awful to think of, but so we take our advice from the parents who are successful with what they've done, or we look at that and we can see that. So it's just a whole lot to bite off.
And it's a correction. Staying on the parenting model is something to consider, because like one of the discussions that we have around our house a lot right now is, once again, like, how did we get here? Because it's very reactionary where things have come, right? A series of events played out, and then people felt like they just got like cold water splashed on the face, and then also went and had a cold bath, and they didn't know how to Wim Hof. Like, they're finding themselves in shock, and then it's caused the motivation. But even in that, there's lots of areas where we've kind of slipped a little bit. We're not people going at each other, but I mean, these are family fights. These are the things about even family. I mean, that's how we're looking at the whole overarching and all the different people. And that's why we are so, like, once again, because we're going to divert attention back to the TPAs, we should read these off too. Like, let's actually give the names of them all. And hopefully as a ticker, we've got them all here, right?
Yeah, we got Stay Free Alberta, Let Alberta Decide, The Levine Show. Speaking of a good family, Corey Morgan, United Alberta Flags, albertaschoice.com, and the Alberta Women's Independence Network. There's also Albertans for Freedom. There are so many more. So,
and the reason why I just want to encourage that is that we want to put out there as a message also for our segment, because we're coming into the landing zone here. It's 2:48. I think we're 3 o'clock or something
like that.
Until somebody comes in and yanks us out.
Yeah, the little hook.
But the thing is that these are all of our family, and including, we would like to give them the tools and the knowledge and exposure for equipment, because odds are there's going to be a lot of people that will watch this telethon and the odds are they're going to be advocates for this movement as it is in order for them to even tune in the first place. What I'm hoping that is that somewhere along the way, we've given them some tools, some things to think about, some research to go and do, and books to go and read. Because I thoroughly enjoyed your work. I did
Yeah,
it
it was
twice,
so good.
and it was really, really early, is before you
Mhm.
even revamped it a little
Yeah.
bit for where we were. Just same with like Michael Wagner's works and whatnot. It's because I honestly feel that as Albertans, in order to be able to not get bamboozled by a lot of the misdis and malinformation slogans that are out there, and there are people with fantastic intentions, but they're tripping over their feet in a lot of ways. So in order to be able to navigate through egos and icons, I'm hoping that the dialogue and these types of events can equip people. I saw Mike get slid in
Yes.
on Daryl.
About time.
I was just waiting for poor Daryl.
Either that or
Right?
Corey's gonna have to like swing it around.
Right? Like,
The snowballs no good.
No, that's
No,
all right.
there.
No, it's. I mean, it's fascinating for me because I've watched the evolution of the Holmes family. So for me to see where they started, what they've overcome, where they're going, and the opportunity to build community has been outstanding. And where you've kind of been the godfather to everybody and independence for such a long time that there's so much respect there. And I think that's when you're. I mean, I'm watching 45 minutes of you guys engaging on the evolution of the idea, and gals are catching up. Mike's saying, "Hey, let's go," and you're going, "Hey, we've been there. Here's how the picture looks." And I think that's what's encouraging, right? I mean, for those of us who are always behind the scenes trying to make it happen, or you were out there in the front getting shot at the whole time. There's a lot of respect for those who have come before us, and I think as the group gets bigger, it's important for us to remember respectful to that history, because this hasn't happened in 1 hour, 1 day, or a year,
right.
right? This has been going on since like 1904, and said, Mike, let's not go back to that start there, but
Subscribe to us, tune into us, and we'll talk about that.
yeah, and it's there. And a couple of things that you talked about, and great that people are donating to the TPAs because there's so much work there. And we're drawing from this small pool that's growing of people who donate. I think as the momentum goes, people should have hope. There's hope that the ideas are starting to generate, not just, hey, let's go, but where do we go? And I mean,
Right.
there's Ben Trudeau has a great book out, Enough. I mean, that all kind of started because we did a town hall called The Courage to Listen, and what would Canada be? What would Alberta be within United Canada? Is that the place to? Value of Freedom came out that very day, and so that was kind of the birth of this discussion that's going on. But what I think that people overlook is the fact that we have so many things we could do now to be independent and sovereign, but government chooses not to. And it's always the third question we have to ask. It's not the first one. It's not the second one. It's like having a conversation. When a third person comes in, you get a validation. And I think, why is government not doing more to promote prosperity? Why are we happy with the lid that's on the pot? And I think so many people in Alberta that are entrepreneurial minded, that's what we see. We see just like the sky's the limit, except there's a lot of dark clouds that get put over it by policy. So in Alberta alone, we could have repatriated a lot of money for the pension plan and had that money being generated in Alberta. I mean, Quebec did it with Shasta Poe. They've had it with their own pension. I mean, we don't even deposit Alberta royalties in the Alberta banks, right? That goes to the CIBC. They skim off 800 million, something like that, in fees. So our government in Alberta, and I have a long history with they're not really committed to building Alberta as a fortress in Canada and making Alberta as strong as it is. And I hear it, I see it, but there's a lot of criticisms that could be made. But at the same time, we have to be, as the people, the politicians will never be the solution. We have to demand the change, and we have to call for it. And that's why I think the movement has grown. The tools are certainly better, although
we got an emergency broadcast here just a few minutes ago, and I thought it was because C-22 was actually official, but apparently there's an autistic boy
Right?
who's
Why
lost.
doesn't that get a big warning?
Right, and you know, it dawned on me sitting here listening to everyone have this dialogue that local news has just died again, right? Global TV's just announced the removal of Alberta news from in Edmonton and Calgary. You know, more local news not being told and centralized into Toronto. So Toronto's going to tell Alberta news.
Nice.
Which, you know,
they always have.
Yeah,
It's the Hunger Games. They're the capital or
that's
District
true.
12.
So channels,
You got a minute.
your channels
Yeah.
are going to do great. I think you can keep going because whoever's behind us will just. This is
Oh
such,
my
They're
gosh.
about to. We've been getting the signals the whole time. That's why I'm like,
Yeah.
you
I'm
got a
looking the
minute.
other way.
Yeah,
No,
no, we've been getting signals.
I appreciate it. One reminder for everybody: we've been talking about asking good questions and dialogue. Send your spicy questions
Yes.
because we already have. Trust us. To Let's Go Alberta number one at gmail.com. Because again, if you are one of those people thinking about it, or you have a friend that is starting to think about it, and they got questions.
I got a question for a friend.
Right. I got a question for a friend. It is literally your job to start the dialogue, because that is how, as you know, Daryl's pointing out, this local conversation and your local dialogues, that's the news. It's Juno news, so like the little Juno groups. And so get together with your friends and start talking and asking those questions. So definitely do that. We are emphatically grateful for this
Yes.
opportunity, and thank you both for coming on.
And we could do another whole hour, but
Yeah.
we don't have
Of course.
that.
Enough, Daryl.
Oh no, I was fascinating listening to everybody.
We'll have him on our podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You guys matter. I'm assuming we're there. If
We're in
there's
your
anything
hands.
less, yeah, we're in your hands here for this studio. So
Here with Corey Morgan, another one of our third-party advertisers. The name of your TPA, Corey?
Pathway to Independence.
Pathway to Independence. And I've talked to you before. I interviewed you the day that you were in Calgary handing out some of your signs. It's been an incredible success for you, hasn't
Oh
it?
boy, has it ever! It's taken right off. You know, I just like to remind people I didn't anticipate it blowing up so big, so I've been terribly organized. We've had fantastic volunteers stepping up, though, and helping as this shotgun approach. Over 12,000 signs made now, probably about 9,000 of them distributed at this point, and still more just churning out and getting out there. The demand and the support has been incredible.
A lot of work, and I know you've talked about there's challenges certainly, but I think the challenges and the rules through Elections Alberta kind of, well, I was going to say it makes it equal for everybody. I don't know that that's actually the case because of what's going on with the Forever Canadian people, but it does give you some guidelines, and it's allowed you to raise quite a bit of money so far, isn't it?
It has, and you know, I don't mind the guidelines. Most of them are based on just transparency, having some maximums, just reporting where's your money coming from, and making sure also the reporting on how you spend it later. So, you know, people aren't getting ripped off and it goes rip along. So it's been good to keep up with it. And the amount raised now has been, well, just a bit over $100,000, which is far beyond what I ever anticipated.
Right. And, you know, there's been a little bit of controversy, some signs taken down or people trying to take down signs. We went to Tabor a few weeks back, which was a great success. People supporting your billboards around the province as well. And there's been a little bit of vandalism, but let's stay away from that. You have been in on this fight, well, I guess decades now.
Yeah, I've been pretty stubborn. I was 29 years old. I started the Alberta Independence Party. I really, similar to now in a sense of just kind of diving in and finding myself just working with how I went.
Yeah.
We learned a heck of a lot since then, and we certainly learned a lot then. I've concluded the Federation was broken a long time ago, and I'm still holding on to that conclusion.
I was going to say to you, nothing has come along to change your mind in all that time.
No, nothing at all. There's been times where I certainly have worked on more pragmatic change because the movement wasn't moving or things are going. You don't stop everything else just because you've concluded, the Federation's broken.
Right.
But now seeing this finally with enough people realizing that this has to come to a question has been great. I've been waiting a long time.
If people want to find out more about you, what's your website?
CoreyMorgan.com, which again, I like to explain. I thought this was just going to be small. I thought we were going to be cheap. I'm going to use an existing website, and we had to register it, so there it is. But it's easy to remember.
But if you would like to support Corey's as a third-party advertiser, go to albertatelethon.com and click on his link.
You stood on those stone cold government steps, faith and freedom, loud and clear. Folding chairs and town hall stages spoke the truth they came to hear. They stood in line for hours, braved the cold and wind. You talked about their children and the mess we're living in. From the back row of the hall to the front row of the fight, you said if they're gonna hear us, it's gonna be tonight.
Come on, let's go. So that's going to be the battle cry for our movement.
Let's go! You came to sign on the freedom line. Ink on paper, hearts on fire. Every name like gasoline, kicking up that rebel choir. Let me shake your hand, thank you for your time. Find up voices, strong and true. You stepped up for Alberta. This one's for you.
I feel like I'm with friends here.
Yeah, and that's exactly correct. That's what the whole thing with all these events are for. People understand that they're part of a group of like-minded people that think and have the same ambitions and goals as they have.
You stared down that lens in your studio light. Coffee gone cold, face pale from the night. From the dark hours to the evening show, you hit go live and refused to let go. Slow roll down from Edmonton, high beams cutting through. Northbound up from Calgary, every small town waiting on you. Truck stop coffee cooling between petitions in the rain. Car tables and gravel out sharpening every name. You came to sign on the freedom line. Ink on paper, hearts on fire. Every name like gasoline, kicking up that rebel choir. Let me shake your hand, thank you for your time. Fired up voices, strong and true. You stepped up for Alberta. This one's for you.
Again.
You filled up clipboards in sleet and rain, roadside lots by the highway chain, in echoing halls where the floors were bare. You passed that pen like a whispered prayer. You came to sign on the frozen ground, heard your own heartbeat like a drum's low sound. Looked around, saw you're not alone. Countless souls fighting for a home. You came to sign on the freedom line. Ink on paper, hearts on fire. Every name like gasoline, kicking up that rebel choir. Let me shake your hand, thank you for your time.
We've gotten by round 3. Now we're in the Stanley Cup final. And away we go. Thank you very much. God bless all of you.
For Alberta, and I raise this one to you. This one's for you. You stood that line.
Here with Corey Morgan and
I think we're live. Hey, Sheila, Tamari, so awesome to see you.
Yes,
hey,
thanks for having us.
No, thank you for joining the live stream. It's amazing. I know how many people are watching us right now, but I think today's goal is to support Alberta independence and to get as many donations as possible for third-party advertisers. So I'm just going to remind everyone before we even start to go to albertathon.com and select your advertisers. Oh, Sheila and Tamara, it's so awesome having you. Please tell us where you are right now.
Okay, so we are in Lethbridge, Alberta right now. This is our second sign drop-off location today. We started the morning in Okotoks, where we met a couple hundred people, give out a couple hundred signs for my third-party advertiser. It's Alberta's choice.com. We've got a couple of different signs. So we're just finishing up here in Lethbridge. I hope we have enough signs because we have to go to Medicine Hat still today. So we're on quite a junket on a blazing hot day. But this is the grassroots TPA that could. And we're doing our best to spread the word that Alberta just wants fair treatment and a chance to have our say.
Oh, that's amazing. You guys are so busy. I guess it's thanks so much for doing that. Guys, what do you think for Alberta independence? Is there a lot of people coming up to pick up those signs?
We started off the day with 500 signs. I think we will probably have about 50 to give out by the time we get to Medicine Hat. We're just wrapping up here now, and we still have, like 15, maybe 20 people still here, just gathering around talking. It's a very busy day. Yeah. When we got here to Lethbridge, there was a crowd of maybe 50 people here. And when we started the day in Okotoks, we weren't supposed to start till 9. But we know our people are eager. And they were already there at 8:30, just snatching up signs. So very busy. People like our signs because they speak to the inequity of the treatment of Alberta. One of our signs says, Quebec got to vote, why can't we? In fact, Quebec got 2 votes. And we have to jump through all these ridiculous hoops just to get a chance to ask the same question Quebec did. And that isn't fair. That's just another reason why Albertans deserve a chance to determine their own future.
Exactly. And what are the people saying? Do you have anyone coming to you while picking up those signs and having a small chat? What is the biggest reason the people support it?
Yeah, I'm gonna shut up and let Tamara take this one.
We've been busy talking to people like crazy. I mean, the one thing about it is they're very happy, they're very hopeful, they're looking forward to the future of Alberta. They have a lot of concerns with how this government is being run and how Canadians are being treated. And but the vibe is positive. There's not a lot of Debbie Downers in this camp. They're really excited for what's coming. They're excited to talk about the possibilities of what a free and independent Alberta could look like. And it's just been an amazing day already. I'm not going to even have a voice tomorrow. We've been talking so much.
Talking so much, shaking so many hands. And yes, lots of hugs. And I just want to reiterate what Tamara's saying. Unlike what is being offered on the other side of this, very little arguments outside of nostalgia and name calling from the Forever Canada and the Federalist side. The people on the independent side, they're full of facts. They can tell you the number when you talk to them about equalization. They can tell you the number when you talk to them about the inequitable distribution of Senate seats. They come armed with the facts, and the other side just comes with, like I said, nostalgia and insults. It's, well, we love Canada. I used to love it too, or I love what it used to be. And they call you names. They shut down the argument. In fact, we had, I should tell you, crazy thing. We didn't plan it this way. When we got here to our spot, well, the Forever Canada people were set up across the parking lot. And they kept to their side, we kept to ours. It's fine. I don't want to fight with them. I want to have our say at the ballot box. But they did have somebody from their side get a little frisky and come over here and get a little aggressive with a nice older lady. But he shut his mouth real fast when the young fellas got involved. If your argument comes down to pointing your fingers in the face of a little old lady, maybe you don't have an argument at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's and that's one of the things that I'm so proud about this side of the movement is that people, we are not the ones out there calling names or being disrespectful,
Stealing signs,
for example. Exactly. Like I said, everyone's really happy, and they're hopeful. And they're respectful to others and what other people's points of view are.
Yeah, and maybe we're monopolizing the show right now.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Go ahead.
We're very excited because this is it really fills your social battery up to meet with people all day. We're in journalism, so we get a lot of anger directed at us on social media, but it's good to touch grass quite literally and be in the real world with real people. And as Tamara said, these people are hopeful. They're not scared. There is a substantial portion of the Canadian population that is addicted to fear post-COVID. And so now that the COVID fear has receded, the fear of separation is their new addiction. But when you talk to these people, and I've sort of said it all day, they're not scared. They really believe in Albertans, that there's nothing that we can't do. When you look at the place that we were able to build in spite of the federal government, in spite of the weather and the climate and all the challenges that faced this province since its inception, we have built a wonderful, beautiful place that we must protect as our own. And it's a pioneering spirit.
Exactly.
We were pioneers, and we're about to pioneer a new country.
We're trailblazers. I
Yep.
mean, we got the people, we got the talent, we got the resources, we got the experience, we got the know-how.
Enthusiasm.
And we got the enthusiasm, that's right. And the positivity.
Yes.
Count 50%.
Exactly. No, Tamara, I wanted to ask you. I think you were a part of WeExit before people took, Western independence seriously. I mean, how does it feel any different from 2019? How does it feel right now?
Oh man, well, there's definitely a lot more momentum, and I think maybe the Maverick Party was a little bit ahead of its time. I've often thought what it would be like to have something like that now, as opposed to 2019. But I would say that the sentiment now is much more increased. There's a lot more support behind Alberta independence now, for sure.
And I think seeing those numbers on the petition normalized it for a lot of people. I think a lot of people believe in independence. Maybe they didn't put their name on the petition, but seeing that 301,000 of their fellow Albertans were willing to stick their name and address on a piece of paper to say, we deserve a chance. I think it really normalized the conversation. It's not a fringe thing. We know the majority of people within the UCP party itself support Western independence. We know that nearly 50%, and this is from our albertas-choice.com official polling data, and we hired Main Street to do it for us. So we thought we'd hire a sort of a left-leaning pollster, so we knew exactly what we were dealing with. We wanted to know the mountain we had to overcome, but we got data that showed that like almost 50% of Indigenous people support independence, regardless of what their chiefs are saying. So we know that this is a really mainstream movement, regardless of the lies as a mainstream media. And there are a few people in the middle, and that's all it's going to take to get this over the finish line.
And I mean, I think every time Prime Minister Carney opens his mouth, 10 new independent supporters start up.
They're born. They're born.
Keep talking, Mr. Carney.
Oh yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you, Sheila, about your book. For that you wrote on a blueprint. I wanted to ask you because there was a referendum in 1995 for Quebec, and they did the right kind of preparation. Do you think we are getting this preparation right for ourselves right now?
When I wrote the book, we weren't. And that's the problem with writing books, is they only show a snapshot of what's happening at that moment. And when I wrote the book, and what I did with the book, it's called Independence Blueprint, What Alberta Can Learn from Quebec. At that time, we weren't doing any of the groundwork that Quebec was doing. We have the enthusiasm, we have the grievances, for sure, but we hadn't done any of the public engagement, the sitting down and answering the questions. And in Quebec, they had this commission that went everywhere across the province, and they had separate commissions for young people and senior citizens because they faced different issues, and they really wanted to know what their objections would be, what their fears were, and they wanted to table a plan to address those because they knew Project Fear was coming for them. And it did work at the end. When the independence was surging in Quebec, that's when the Federalists just unleashed everything they had, and it really put a stop to that. The more groundwork we do in advance, which I think Keith Wilson and his group are doing right now, the more public engagement, the more facts and education are out there, the less that fear that we saw in Quebec will be effective on Albertans.
Exactly. Yes, I think Keith Wilson started a good transition council, so I think we are getting more and more prepared for this entire event. Also wanted to ask, for Tamara, I heard that there is something going on in terms of additional charge. I think you were there. You got arrested multiple times with no bail. I wanted to ask you, do you think did it impact you to support Alberta independence? How did your overall sentiment towards the federal government is after all of this. And I heard that there's some things coming up soon in October. So just wanted to get your perspective. What do you think?
Well, I think that Canada does not have a justice system. I think that Canada has a legal system. And what you're referring to is we have an appeals process coming up, Chris Barber and myself. As most people that are following these cases will know, that Pat King had his acquittal on his intimidation charge overturned by the appellate court yesterday, and he's going back for resentencing within the next 60 days. So that's obviously very concerning for everybody else. And you know what? I love Canadians. Igor, I can't tell you enough how much support that Chris and I and so many others have gotten from Canadians. Canada, as it sits right now, not so much. I mean, it's definitely not the country that I grew up in. It's very concerning. It's very concerning to me that we have 3 judges that wrote in a decision that the Freedom Convoy was an organized attack on Ottawa citizens.
Yeah.
That's very concerning to me because that's liberal talking points. That those are not facts, and those are now written in a legal decision going forward. So I'm anticipating that our appeal will now be expedited because they were actually waiting on this decision, and they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to have myself and Chris Barber's intimidation acquittals overturned and have us serve more jail time.
Oh my goodness, this is after, I think it was already like 5 years house arrest that they did, or it was already pretty long. Yeah.
My sentence will be served before this even gets to the appellate court, most likely. And my sentence will be served in January of 2027. So again, then, we're just going to start this whole process all over again.
This is this is honestly, scary for a lot of, especially immigrants coming from those countries, where democracy is not there so much. So it's kind of scary even for me coming from Eastern Europe, hearing that people get this kind of things going on here in Alberta. It almost feels like, to me, it almost feels like a made up charge, just to intimidate people from speaking up. That's my personal perception of this. It could be a different thing from the legal perspective, but that's how I see it. From where I come from, it's, if you speak up your mind too much, this kind of charges appear, it's at least from my perspective.
I just spoke to a gentleman whose family immigrated here from China, and he said the same thing, like that his parents would just be absolutely appalled by what's going on here. And I had to tell him the story about, when we were at the Freedom Convoy, if we were walking around, Canadians would obviously come up and they'd hug us and they'd cry on our shoulder and they would be very grateful. But when the immigrants that came from communist countries came up, it was a completely different, it was a desperate gratitude, tears of desperation from people that have watched this playbook and they're watching it happen in Canada in slow motion. And a lot of our immigrant population that came from these communist countries have been trying to sound the alarm bells for quite a considerable amount of time. So it is alarming to them, and they should know, they know what they're talking about,
Yeah. And to just bring this all back to the whole idea of independence, these judges by and large are federally appointed by the Liberal Party. Some of them are Liberal donors. There's a requirement on the Supreme Court that they be Francophone. All of that means that they are largely not from the West. So these judges do not represent the values of the West. We are seeing light sentences or no sentences at all for career criminals, illegal migrants getting light sentences so that it doesn't jeopardize their immigration. But then you see the book being thrown at people like Tamara Leach. And then when they lose, they try to get another kick at the can. And so I think what we're seeing in the justice system, which as Tamara points out, is simply just a legal system, it fuels Western independence because we see that we do not want to be a part of a country that allows catch and release for people who harm children, people who harm our fellow Canadians. But then when you see what's happening to Tamara, you see that it is a political decision that we no longer want to be a part of.
Exactly. And, honestly, before we continue, I just want to remind everyone to go through the link and put your donations for your favorite TPA, third-party advertisers that you want to support. Exactly. Yes, please don't forget that too, because I think that's the only way to fight tyranny at this point, to get as many donations as possible to to have the vote to get us out, because we have unlimited budget of traditional media. I think we have, was it you, Sheila, that you were saying about two-tier media system that we have, or, that we have. And yeah, I think the social media, and that's what they're trying to close right now, is the only way. And we have to get out before it's too late. So make sure you donate. I also wanted to ask you, Tamara, how do you keep on going if you know that so much of stress is going to your family, potential another charges or another thing that might come up we don't know. How do you keep on going despite of all of those things? Because a lot of people they would look around, they would just give up by now. They would say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I'm too scared.
Yeah, Igor, I want to know that too.
Yeah, well, honestly, you just answered your own question. I'm not afraid. These people don't scare me, and people just need to understand there is nothing to fear. I mean, what can they take from me that I really truly need? They've put me on house arrest, and a judge has blocked my mobility rights, but she doesn't give me my freedom. My freedom comes from God, and I think He's got my back. And I'm just really fortunate that I have an amazing family who supports what I do. And
good
supports what has
coworkers.
happened. Great, obviously, the best coworkers in the entire world. And so, Chris Barber and I talk at length about how truly blessed. I feel like the luckiest woman in the world. I've had support, and this goes back to what I was saying about Canadians. Canadians have really supported Chris and I and everybody from the Freedom Convoy, and we appreciate it and love them so much. And that, I guess that's what keeps me going. And they just don't scare me, and I'm just not good with. I'm not going to let them break me. They can't. And honestly, that's one of the things they hate the most. And I've been speaking about this a little bit lately because there's quite a bit of backlash after I was at the U.S. ambassadors there on the 4th of July, and a lot of people that don't like me are more upset that I'm not miserable, sad, broken, and demoralized. But that's really not in my nature. So yeah, I feel really lucky. And, to be quite frank, we're almost through this. We've got about just over 2 months left of our house arrest, and then we'll have a curfew for a few months, and, then this will be all over.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Oh, that's the good part. And I hope it's all going to be over. I hope I hope by October, once we have our referendum, we are going to move towards freedom, because I think it's getting a little bit more, heated up, because recently, I don't know if you've seen that news, an Edmonton person was walking around with the flag, Alberta flag, and was almost thrown under the car. It could have been a homicide if that person were to get run over by that car. It's crazy things.
Igor, I did run into that man. His name is Don Bonner. I ran into him at Keith Wilson's pancake breakfast for Let Alberta Decide last weekend in Calgary. And he also amazed me with his positive attitude. He has very much the same positive attitude as Tamara, that yes, maybe he could have flung me into traffic, but thank God I didn't get run over. And he's grateful for the driver with their quick reaction. And he said, it's not going to stop me. They did that to stop me. So if I stop, didn't they win? And I think that's exactly the right attitude to have. We got to go out there. We got to have the facts, but we got to have the right attitude, because this is not a level playing field. No. The other side does not have to register as a third-party advertiser group. The other side can push our people into traffic. The other side can get aggressive. We can't. It's not fair. But we have to know that. We have to be on our best behavior, and we all have to be great ambassadors for the movement.
Absolutely. And
it's actually
not only that, the more successful this becomes, the more desperate the other side becomes, and vicious. And so I just want to tell everyone to stay safe out there.
Dial the heat down.
Head on a swivel.
Yep.
And just be aware of your surroundings, and hopefully these other guys smarten up a bit.
Exactly. It's you have to always have to watch your back, because some I don't know why it is, but sometimes I'm thinking it's like a Trump derangement syndrome almost going on the other side. I don't know what's even though we don't have Trump here, but they get really aggressive without any reasonable explanation to it. So always you also be careful there when you're in public giving away your sides, because some forever Canada people who don't even have to declare, this is the craziest part about it, is that they don't have to declare the third party advertiser where the funds is coming from. Is it even coming from Alberta, where it's all spent?
Who knows? Unions,
it's crazy.
We don't know.
We don't have any idea.
Igor,
Oh yeah.
we have about 2 more minutes. Otherwise, we're never going to make it to Medicine Hat. So
Sure,
you
sure.
have a good question for us?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about Premier's, Sheila, what do you think about Premier's question that she rewarded it to, it became a different question for October, so yes leads to another referendum rather than, is it a smart correction or just way to stall the movement? How would you address it?
No,
Actually, for
I think
both
it
of
was
you.
not. Yeah, I think it was neither. I think it was neither a smart correction or a means to stall the movement. I don't think she's out to stall the movement. I think we can, and I understand people's anger towards Premier Smith for sure. I get it, but I think she was sort of left with no choice with the court decision that said that there wasn't adequate enough consultation with First Nations groups. And she was public. She said, "I disagree with that."
That's right.
She was vocal about that. But to challenge that decision would have taken this beyond October. And so this was the only way to salvage an opportunity for Albertans to have their say, but also to have their say down the road. It amounts to adequate consultation, I guess. I don't like it. I don't agree with the court. The Premier was clear that she doesn't agree with the court. You know what consultation is? One person, one vote, regardless of your ethnicity. We're consulting everybody on the matter of a referendum. I think she was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and she split the baby, and there's just no winner there.
Yeah. No, I don't really have too much to add to that. Remember, Premier Smith didn't have an independence mandate when she was elected. She never ran on that platform, but I do feel I agree with you. Like, I think she was trying to mitigate both sides and make it
I think if everybody's unhappy, she probably thinks she probably did the right thing. And you have to remember, she did not have to fix the referendum process. Jason Kenney made it insurmountable to proceed with a referendum in this province. She lowered the bar and made it a little bit more achievable. And the independence movement did achieve that. The activist courts and the activist chiefs got in the way. And I think it was just an ugly situation, and it wasn't made any better by that decision, but I'm not sure what else she could have done.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us on this live stream and giving all this incredible information and especially doing all the groundwork that you're doing by actually giving up the signs. Not only like most people on YouTube, like myself, we just make videos, but you guys actually do the actual work.
Real jobs. Yeah.
Yes, the real jobs to get Alberta independent. Exactly. And also, I want to remind everyone to go ahead and support the third-party advertisers, and I think that's the only way for us to get our independence. Because, like you were saying, the Forever Canada crowd, I don't even know whether I should call them Forever Canada people. I just summarize it because it's almost like Trump derangement syndrome on that side going on in that way. They don't have to
forever slavery. Yeah,
forever slavery. I think that's actually way better. It's people who are being driven by fear a lot, and they're having unlimited printing machine of money from what I'm seeing, because if they don't declare where the money is coming from, and could be coming from anywhere, it actually doesn't really make sense. If they're, from my perspective, they are campaigning. They're campaigning not for unity of Canada, they're campaigning specifically against Alberta independence.
Igor, they were literally in the same parking lot as us today with flags. We had flags, they had flags. I have signs, they had signs. They had volunteers, I got a volunteer. They were doing exactly the same. They were taking donations, I'm taking donations, doing exactly the same thing I was doing in the exact same city, 50 feet that way. And I've got to register as a third-party advertiser and declare everything, and they don't. Make it make sense.
It does make sense. It's the biggest surprise I got for me is that my investigation by Elections Alberta got dismissed. I didn't even know I was investigated for something I said on X. I was like, oh wow, I'm not even registered a third-party advertiser. I didn't do anything. I was like, why are they investigating? I just got a letter saying it's been dismissed. I was like, oh well, I guess it's a good sign.
Igor, I can do you one better. They investigated me for writing a book called Stop Notley. And I gave out lawn signs to promote the book, and then Elections Alberta investigated me, issued a $5,600 fine.
What?
And then when I said,
Whoa.
you you concluded the investigation without even interviewing me. They said, "Oh, we made a mistake. Now we want to interview you." Then the fine got rescinded when I recorded my phone call with the investigator. When like my lawn signs literally said, "Stop Not Leave, buy the book," and they said that was a campaign, but I was advertising a
Oh,
book. Anyway, they came after me.
wow, that's crazy. So they reduced the amount, or they dropped
They
that fine
dropped it
for you.
altogether once I said, "You didn't even interview me and I'm about to lawyer up big time." Then they got rattled and then dropped the fine.
Oh my goodness! I guess that's their biggest way of just intimidating people out of it. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
it. I'm sure they might be watching our live stream right now, so we also have to be careful, you know, not to say something they could, you know, not to say
Yeah.
something they could catch to it and say that you're saying
I'm not
something. It's
scared. I'm not scared of elections, Alberta. I fought them once and won. Come again.
no, absolutely, absolutely. I think I was the sound on my headphones somehow, but I can hear you a
Oh,
little bit.
okay.
I can still hear you.
Yeah,
Can you
we
hear
can
me?
still hear you. But Igor, I must
should
tell
wrap
you,
up.
we have to wrap up. We have to get to our next location. I don't want the people waiting for me. I have the signs.
Sounds good. Sounds good. That's amazing. Well, you
I
ladies
just
have a
want to take.
wonderful journey and keep doing the great
We will.
work.
We
And
will.
Thank you.
let's get our
Igor, thank
referendum.
you. Thank you for and your entire team for putting this together.
Absolutely.
John, we're talking about you. Thank you too. And to everybody at home watching, Max also, everybody at home watching, everybody who's putting their hard-earned money behind whatever TPA you choose, please choose mine. But whatever hard-earned money that you are giving, we know how hard you work for that. We know that there are other things that you could be spending your money on, but we promise we're out here working hard, giving up our weekends, our evenings after we have real jobs to fight for Western independence. And we just appreciate everybody who's doing that, who's supporting all of us, whether it's Corey, Keith, us, anybody. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Oh,
Thank you, guys.
yes, thank you especially for doing all of this.
Yes,
It's
thank you.
it's amazing.
Thank you.
Welcome. 3 months from today, you'll be asked to vote for option 2 on question 10 in the referendum. But a lot is going to happen between now and October the 19th. Let me put it to you this way. Over the next 3 months, the full weight of the federal government of Canada, the Liberal Party of Canada, and the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, will come down on Alberta to try to stop us from gaining our independence. Not only that, the full weight of the Conservative Party of Canada, its MPs, many of whom you voted for, and its leader, Pierre Poilievre, will come down on Alberta to try to stop us from gaining our independence. And a little closer to home, a woman you probably voted for and trusted will be campaigning against you for trying to get a better life for yourself, your children, and your grandchildren. Not only that, these parties have endless amounts of money. Throw in the mainstream media and the $1.4 billion of your money to the CBC, and this is a pretty steep hill to climb. But today, we can make a difference. Today, we can make a stand. Today, we can send a message to Ottawa. So far, third-party advertisers on our side are doing very, very well. We're outraising the other side, but we have hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they have millions and billions. If you can, over the next 12 hours, please contribute. Please donate to the third-party advertisers we'll be talking about today. It's the only way we can win this thing. Welcome to the Telethon for Independence. Now let's kick some ass.
we're back live here, and now I also invited John Bolton to come back to our stage. I want to remind everyone to go and donate as much as possible to get us through the referendum question. Go to albertatelethon.com. That's the website, and I think there's 6 TPAs. Seven, yeah.
7 there. Yes, and you can pick the one you want. So there's 7 there. Yeah.
Perfect. Choose the TPA that you think you want to donate to, and go ahead and support it, because we are fighting against legacy media that has unlimited amount of funds coming from your taxes, probably.
If you can donate to more than one, that'd be terrific. It's been fantastic so far. I just was talking with Tanya Clements. By the way, Tanya and Keith Wilson are going to be on in the next hour with Nat and the guy. We're going to Mexico. Nat and the guy will be hosting from Mexico. So we're kind of an international telethon here today. But Tanya and Keith will be on with Nat and the guy. They're not in Mexico, I have to tell you that. But they've already raised over $30,000 today. So it's been a great day. All the other TPAs are more than 10 times what they would raise in a day, but it's not enough. We need to get more money in the bank. We're 4 hours in, and this has been an incredible success. But folks, we really, really need your support. So if you can help out, albertatelethon.com, please help.
No, exactly. I don't know if my microphone is working, because I can hear you, but I can hear myself. But I can
hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
As long as you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Because it's went silent. Oh my goodness, it was amazing to have Sheila Gunn-Reid and Tamara Leach on our live stream right now. They're actually doing the groundwork, risking, and that's awesome. And they brought up a couple of important things, and that's what scares me a lot right now in Canada. What Canada has become is Tamara Leach getting criminal charges and getting obstruction, I believe it was there, a couple of arrests with no bail. Where we actually have real criminals. I was talking to Edmonton police officer the other day, and he was telling me about the case where some 9-year-old girl was killed and tossed into hockey bag, and there was a ridiculously small charge for that guy who did that. And I was wow, this is crazy. So for political speech, they really go at you, and when somebody has a homicide of underage, it's almost what the hell is going on? It's scary.
The process is the punishment, and that's what they're doing to me. When I see Tamara Leach, it makes me mad. I remember watching the convoy. You remember watching the convoy. Everybody who followed the convoy remembers when she got arrested. I was so damn mad about that. And then I see her now. She's been charged with mischief. And this has been going on for 5 years or something. And then they're going to take her back to court and try to put her in jail for longer, all because of her speech. This is what you want to deal with where you live? This won't happen in an independent Alberta. This isn't going to happen in an independent Alberta. People are going to have rights in an independent Alberta. And think back to the time when they ran over an old woman. I think she was in a walker with a horse. So, I get mad when I see Tamara Leach. She's a diminutive woman. She stands about 4 foot nothing. And I stand beside her, and she's got more guts than most of the people who run this government. And it makes me so damn mad when I see her, because she is a freedom fighter. And so is Sheila Gunn-Reid, and I want to thank them for being on. And this is what we're fighting for today. We need as much money as we can get today, for goodness sakes. As I said in that little clip you just watched, there's an unending amount of money that's going to be fighting against us. Billions of dollars. All the political parties, because they want to keep us here, because we're their bank account. I've had enough, and I want to leave, and I can feel the momentum building. And that's what today is about. albertatelethon.com. This is a fundraiser, folks. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. Thank you so much. If you contributed, thank you. But if you haven't, and you can give, or you know somebody who can, or you can max it out and go to $5,000, for goodness sakes, do it today, and keep contributing as much as you can all the way through October 19th.
Biggest thing that I heard, I believe I heard it from you today, they actually passed some legislation to censor the freedom of speech right now in Canada. I think it's coming to power.
C9 is in effect today.
That's crazy.
3 months to the day before we vote. That's where we are right now. Yeah, C9. It's religious speech is all going to be gone here, and our freedoms of speech are slowly being stripped away little by little. And you know what happens in England is this is where we're going, folks. In England, somebody knocks on your door and there's somebody standing there and they said, you offended somebody on X, we'd like you to come down to the police station.
Yeah.
And you're not charged with a crime. It's I can't remember. It's some Orwellian phrase they use, and I can't think of it right now. But they take you down and they grill you and they tell you to behave yourself because you bothered somebody. I'm a free speech absolutist. As long as you're not threatening somebody, you should be able to say whatever the hell you want in this country, as far as I'm concerned. That's the way I feel about it. But yeah, the free speech is being slowly stripped away, bill by bill by bill by bill. Eventually, they're just going to take it away from you. I mean, well, George Washington said, if freedom of speech is taken away, then deaf and dumb shall be led like sheep to the slaughter. And that's what's coming, folks.
I think it's time to speak about it right now before it's too late, because in some countries, if you ask me why I'm speaking about it, is because once you're not able to speak about it, then it's too late. The only way to change something is probably to change the country. It's
That's right.
then it's too late. And I don't want to be re-immigrating again. First I moved to a free country, and then it's becoming the similar dictatorship what's going on in Eastern Europe, and then getting out of here. Like, no, I'm not doing that. So we have to keep on speaking up and for our freedoms and rights.
Igor, you've been talking to so many people through this, as I have. And, I've gone out to so many wonderful places. I was on at 11 o'clock this morning. And I said how wonderful it is for me to be able to meet the people in this movement. I met you through this, my friend. And, we've got a kinship here now. Everybody's got this kinship. It's just remarkable. And I go out, you meet people. They come up to you, Igor, right? You shake their hand and you're just as happy to see them as they are to see you. This is this friendship, this bond that we've got here. We've got a bond of being friends. We've got a bond of working towards the same goal. And how great is it to work towards a goal with your friends? And it's just really remarkable. And we can do this, but we're going to need a lot more help. And AlbertaTelethon.com, go there, click on a link, click on several if you can, put all the information in there, as much as you can, all of it. Then you'll find, then the TPAs, the third-party advertisers, won't have to track you down. And make sure you do that specifically for PayPal and e-transfers. If you don't put all your information down, Elections Alberta might end up with your money. And, they can't help you. The TPAs can't help you at that point.
They'll just literally steal your donation. So make sure you put all of your information there. And I'll tell you, what happened in Eastern Europe. There's a guy from Russia that lives in Airdrie right now, and he was an influencer, so to speak, in back home in Russia. And he made a Facebook post supporting Ukraine in when the entire situation happened there with all the military war, basically war between Ukraine and Russia. He went and supported Ukraine there, and they showed up to his house, and they brought in a camera. They came with the machine guns and everything, but they didn't point it at him, but scared his kids and everyone. And they basically brought in a camera and they recorded that guy's face and saying, well, you should not ever do this again.
Yeah.
So, so that was his final straw before he left Russia, and he took asylum in Canada.
Well,
he's in Airdrie now.
Yeah, I've spoken to people who come up and said they've come from communist countries or oppressive countries, and they came here for the freedom, and it's slowly being stripped away. They see what was happening there now happening here, and that's really sad.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you cannot protest or anything. Then he went in St. Petersburg for a protest. They grabbed him, threw him into a jail, and jails were overfilled with the people who came to a protest. So they took him out of the city, and then they released him in by 4 a.m. in a random location somewhere in the rural part of Russia. And he's like, I don't even know where I am and what's going on. And because the jails in the city were overfilled with the people who were on that protest. So they literally brought in buses, just loaded people on the buses and started driving them jail to find out which one is, police department, which one is available, because everything was overfilled. So that's kind of a thing. When I meet Eastern Europeans, I met some conversers. I was going to play a video today on this live stream.
It was 40 minutes long.
It's a 40-minute one. I'll just publish it separately on my channel. And honestly, hey, I'll tell you what I wanted to show the entire video, but I think I'll save it as a documentary. It basically was starting where you were speaking there with Dennis Kalma and